Turn your radios up. Turn your radios up. Y'all know what this is. Y'all know who this is. B-Eazy Dat Dude back with another one. This one is gonna be a banger. It's gonna be a doozy. But look, before we get this thing started, because I will not keep y'all waiting tonight. So, you know, I gotta hit you.
If you know the song, sing along. Yeah, you're right. Hey.
私も地元民と言っても地元のぐらいです。もう友達できたの？うん。ぶったまんまこっち見ない。
This promethazine got me leaning like a cholo in the club. I'm 20 deep. I don't be riding solo. Pull some bad bitches, they vanilla and cocoa. They wanna take some photos when we kick it out in Soho. Chicks are showing tits and popping pussy for my promo. Told them like juvenile, baby, move it for me slow-mo. Then I'm right back to the block, cause I keep getting moto. I be flipping, not shrinking. I don't give a fuck about no ho, no ho. This nigga name ain't D-Lo, but pimpin' these bitches and stacking this bread. Forever be my stilo. This is B-Eazy Dat Dude. In the trap making pass smooth. If I ever go broke, then I'm about to pull a jack move. Since a nigga healthy, I don't even gotta worry. With my bitch from Fiji, eating tandoori and chicken curry. That ism is really indie. My pimp game international. I design my own clothes, so I be always looking fashionable. Here's a couple facts about me that y'all didn't know. Some of y'all be getting bread, but I be getting bigger, dawg. I got bigger guns and a whole lot of better. Okay, and we are activated. We about to get right into this thing. Y'all see the title, Nancy Boy Nick Fuentes. He went on the Piers Morgan show and was telling lie after lie after lie, illogical fallacies. And Piers Morgan, of course, this dude is a stooge. Not only that, he's not black, so he's ill-equipped to challenge many of these points. And also Piers Morgan, this is a way to manufacture consent, where you go out there and let him spew this anti-black views. And since you're unable to contest and challenge the views appropriately and properly, then those views just set out there and it's just like kind of free speech. But we're definitely going to break this down. Let me just go ahead and get this set up and we are going to get right into it. Actually, I'm going to just play the video right out the gate. Let me know if you'll have any issues hearing this. This is a reaction to me breaking down propaganda Piers Morgan and Nancy Boy Nick. Let's commence.
You're a New York Times reader, an NPR fan, a Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the line should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone...
Oh, shout out to the OG, the triple OG, the intelligent Von Bryant in the building. Salute to you, bro. Good to see you over here. Yeah, you're going to want to tune into this one. This one will be good.
Should actually talk to him at all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy, this Fuentes guy, and never challenged him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show and you could ask him questions about that.
The truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining. And he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis.
And these people need to stop pretending. They have no issue with Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes has been a disgusting, grotesque, anti-Black bigot. And for years, everybody was talking about freedom of speech. We don't want censorship, cancel culture. Well, that's woke. And then as soon as he talks about Israel in every other sentence, it's the Jews, then suddenly, he's a flaming anti-Semite and, he just has to be stopped. But when he was railing against Black people, they were cheering him on, putting a battery in his back, kissing his feet. So, yeah, you guys created Nick Fuentes.
I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those of you who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk as we prepared for this in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you...
And shout out to the Black Authority, Jason Black. He covered this I think it was a couple weeks ago. See, Nick Fuentes wants to act like he's this populist and like he's standing up for the little guy. But all he wants to be is he just wants to be the #1 go-to bigot of the mainstream. How Tucker Carlson used to be and Rush Limbaugh. He just wants to be a younger version of Rush Limbaugh. But now much of his anti-Black and anti-Semitic rhetoric is catching up to him. So occasionally he still dabbles in it, but he tries to act like, hey, no, bruh, it's just free speech. And I don't hate people, even though he'll spew out hateful stuff. He'll turn around and try to say that he's not hateful. And we're just going to break down how much of a hypocrite he is.
Have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing.
And first, let me let y'all know who this dude Coleman Hughes is. This dude is a tether. That's what he is. The dude's name is Coleman Hughes Cruz. Why'd he drop the Cruz? Because when he's just Coleman Hughes, he sounds more black. So he's always trying to wag his fingers at black people. Him and Candace Owens went up in front of the House committee and they spoke against reparations. Dude, you're not eligible. This dude is Hispanic and Latino. He's Puerto Rican and something else. And this is why we call out the tethers, because on one day, hey, I'm black, and we shouldn't get reparations. And then another day, he's talking about how he's Hispanic. Come on, bruh. This is the tethering. So we just have to be clear what his perspective is from. Not only that, he's a buck broken Zionist. I don't care if the dude likes to, engage in, the homosexual proclivities and things, but it's like, this dude is not our representative at all. This dude is a tether. Coleman Cruz.
He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
Introducing Iron Beam, a bright choice for futures trading. Iron Beam is an...
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think you have to consider.
I will agree with him. Coleman Cruz is a propagandist, but so is Piers Morgan and so is Nick Fuentes. That's part of the hypocrisy. Y'all know what they say, the pot calling the kettle black. He's a propagandist. So what are you, a truth teller? All he does is spew propaganda and white victimhood.
For the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison or his son, David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time, I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting and we make.
And see, I mean, just stop pretending. When he says he has a sense of humor, all of his sense of humor stuff was bigoted, racist stuff. And it's just jokes, bro. But then when you start joking against them, then it turns into white victimhood. And see, they really hate us. But when he's making jokes against black people, it's not because he hates them. It's just jokes. And then as soon as anyone says anything towards white people, they start considering it woke. And then we'll go back to Africa.
Jokes and we play devil's advocate. We play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
You sound insane and you sound moist, and anyone listening to this dude is insane, but we've been joined by an illustrious guest, and I have to give a shout out to the captivating, the magnificent, the intelligent, sincere Saida in the building.
You have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Yeah, your childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised.
What the hell does that mean? My parents are both ethnics. What the hell does that mean? Your parents are white. So he's trying to say that they're ethnic as if they're something different. He said his dad is Italian. Yeah, Italians wasn't considered white. They actually was called Guineas, which mean y'all was African, which means y'all was niggas. Y'all not like us. But then, they got buck broken and assimilated into whiteness. And now, okay, y'all got what y'all wanted. Y'all are considered white now. And now he's trying to say, oh yeah, my parents are ethnic. Even his Mexican side, they fought to be legally classified as white. And now he wants to say they're ethnic because once whites let them know, hey, yeah, y'all could be Caucasian, but y'all ain't white. Y'all are not like us. And all they wanted to do was say, hey, look, we're not like those niggers, and they wanted to be accepted into whiteness. So now he's trying to play this word salad to try to act like he's anything other than white. Like if you ask him, is he white? He'll say yes. So why the hell is he saying that his family members are ethnic?
By single mothers, not because of divorce. It's totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Yeah, your childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so.
Did y'all hear what he said? He was raised by a single mother in a dysfunctional home. What racial and ethnic group do they usually attribute that to, right? You guys are growing up with single baby mamas in dysfunctional homes. Oh, like Nick Fuentes did?
So they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city, and they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us.
What Christian values does he have? Seriously, what is a Christian value about calling people niggers? Seriously, like where does that say? Like, could anyone point me to a scripture that will justify the use of saying, I don't want to live next to those niggers? Von Bryant, maybe you can help me. Is there any scripture or anything that would, highlight that as a Christian value?
And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of.
Oh, so he grew up with a single mom in a dysfunctional household, a broken household and family, but he seemed to have turned out fine. He seemed to say that, hey, I'm still close with my family. So if he could grow up with a single mom in a dysfunctional family, why can't black people do it and be functional? Oh, yeah, I forgot, because he's going to bring up the sub-Saharan African low IQs, and it's just their culture. Even though he's saying he grew up allegedly in the same culture. The only difference is there were black single people growing up in the projects, and he was growing up with a single parent in the burbs. But he thinks he's better because he had a, silver spoon, you know what I mean? Okay.
Get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. Everybody was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years. In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from.
I know he loves hot dogs. He looks like a glizzy guzzler. Nancy boy Nick.
I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political.
So he says he loves the people in Chicago, but he's always railing against the black people there. So just say that you love the white people there. Just say that, bruh.
Well, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University and I read a lot of things online, and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's kind of where I came from.
My first obvious.
Bro, what the hell is he talking about? He's incoherently babbling. I want to make it more like my home. What home are you talking about? Are you talking about Chicago? Then you could pivot from talking about Chicago to talking about America. So what do you want to make it? You want to make it more dysfunctional? I mean, you grew up with a single mother. I mean, do you want more of that in your neighborhood? What the hell are you talking about, bruh?
His question is, were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume there were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here.
So mind you, he comes from a family of immigrants, right? His family is from immigrants. And then he is always railing against immigrants. But yeah, immigration is cool as long as they're white.
On my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around at the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your.
And mind you, he just said his family came in the 1900s. And see, when you got people who are standing on lineage business, foundational Black American Negro freedmen business, all of us didn't come on a transatlantic slave trade, but let's just say that we did. Right? That would have put us here in the 1700s and 1800s, even though we were here before that. But let's just go with the 1700s and the 1800s. His family immigrated here in the 1900s after it was already built. And he's always pumping his chest, America first. We built the nation. Whites built this. No, you were failing in your homeland. That's why you fled. Instead of fighting to preserve and make your homeland better, your parents fled. They packed up and seen the land of milk and honey that we built. And guess what? All the people will say, no handouts. Guess what they came over here and got? Handouts to the tunes of millions upon millions of acres. Don't take my word for it. Look up the Homestead Act. All it was, goodies, giveaways, and guarantees. And then they turn around and say, they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. I just couldn't do it in my homeland. But I thought you had the superior IQ and the superior work ethic. Shouldn't that be universal no matter where you're at? No, it only works in the place that we built. Look up and see, was it foundational Black American freedmen building the White House, or was it Italian immigrants? Look up who was building New York when it was called New Amsterdam. Wasn't no immigrants. Let's commence.
Views on immigration. Are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Got him. Piers Morgan is a propagandist, but it's true. If it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist. And look at this goofy face that he has on. Not only that, the Italians, when they came over, like I said, they were called Guineas, meaning, yeah, man, y'all got some Negro blood in y'all. Guinea, they were calling them Africans. Irish, they were calling them the Irish. They were calling them niggers, white niggers and shit. And guess what? Instead of linking up, now there were a brief time where they did try to link up, but they saw it was more beneficial to them to assimilate into whiteness, and anti-blackness is as American as apple pie. So they said, hey, look, man, we know y'all ain't gonna treat us exactly like the Anglos, but as long as y'all treat us better than the niggas, hey, fuck them niggas. That's pretty much what they was on. And now they're on some different, I'm an ethnic American. I'm a person of color. We were enslaved too. Like, no, you were an indentured servant. Anyone could look up and say, was chattel slavery the same as indentured servant? So they try to like tether themselves on to a struggle that they had nothing to do with. Were they treated unfairly? Yes. Were they called names and slurs and denied certain things? Yes. But all that went by the wayside because they sold their soul, for some butter biscuits, you know what I mean? Or in the Irish case, for some baked potatoes.
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since
So now he's saying there's a common ancestry. What the hell is he talking about? See, this is that fallacy. This is how they galvanize white people. What common ancestry? Okay, ask an Italian and say, hey, you're no different than an Irish person. You guys have common ancestry. They'll run down and say why they're not different. But in order to galvanize and further push out white supremacy, then they all become one big ethnic group. You know what I mean? We're all white and all this stuff. So it's like, so Irish people could take credit for what the Romans did. You know what I mean? Someone from Slovenia could take credit for what the Vikings allegedly did. So he's trying to like make these groups just some amalgamated group, like they were just all together, just sticking together as one big unified white front. No, they weren't that until they came here. Guess what unified them? Going against black people, because in their homeland, there were no black people. They were beating the shit out of each other. They were cannibalizing each other. So when they had a common enemy to look down on, the black man, then suddenly they got on code. So if you remove black people out the equation, guess what they're going to go back to doing? Fighting each other. You think I'm lying? Look at Russia. Russia is lily white, blue eyes, blue hair. They say that's pure, pure for the Aryan race. Same thing in Ukraine, a bunch of white people. Guess what they're doing? Slaughtering each other to the tune of hundreds of thousands. That's like, you got to combine Chicago, St. Louis, Oakland, Baltimore. You got to combine them for like 20, 30 years, and you still won't even get those numbers that they're doing over there. Guess what you call that? White on white crime. No one is calling that. This is modern day. This ain't ancient history. This ain't no Game of Thrones. This ain't no Vikings Netflix series. This is happening today. Whites on whites slaughtering each other. No one is talking about culture. No one is saying who raised them. Ukrainians and Russians have a common ancestry. That's not stopping Putin from bombing them. That's their culture. But they want you to trip off some random musty, crusty, dusty nigga in Chicago doing a drive-by. The nigga in Chicago did a drive-by and he got arrested. That's accountability. Russians is dropping bombs on people. They got to get their limbs amputated. They're wiping out a younger generation of men. Where's the accountability? Where's the talks of culture? Where's the talk of fatherless homes? Hey, maybe they actually probably grew up with 2-parent households. And guess what? They're still dropping bombs and threatening to drop nuclear bombs. But we don't want to talk about culture? Okay.
65 since Hart Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of.
And just to be clear, I don't support open borders because open borders, it hurts the Black community the most. I can run that down factually with numbers and prove that. But this dude he's not against immigration. He's just against immigration from non-white countries. And yes, he will accept non-white immigrants, but he only wants the best of the best, the scientists and all this stuff. He wants a brain drain from the other countries, which will be a brain gain for our country. And the rest of it, he doesn't care if it's a white peasant or a white professor. He just wants more whites over here so they can, maintain their majority status, but they never were the majority. There were just a bunch of other groups who weren't white who got adopted into whiteness to maintain this, pseudo majority status. But like people like to play these games. Like he said, he considers himself white, but when asked the question, he said his parents were ethnic. My parents were ethnic. They were Irish and Italian. It's like, Irish is considered white. Italian is considered white. So where's the ethnic at? My mom was Mexican, and this is like most Mexicans in here consider themselves white. So where is the ethnic part? And it doesn't matter if these people were alleged ethnic, because if he's going to turn around and say his race is white. So why are you bringing up the ethnic stuff? It's just like when people will say, well, Jews are not white. Well, according to the census and Pew Research, 92%, let me say that number again, 92% of American Jews identify as racially white. There's no gun to their head forcing them to check that box. They could check other, right? Some of them consider themselves Middle Eastern. Well, they will have that category in 2030, MENA, Middle Eastern, North African. Do you think most Jews are going to check that box, or do you think they're going to continue checking the white box? And then you check the white box and then you call them white. That's anti-Semitic. Why'd you check that box then? And then you got bigots like this dude who will say that they're not white. But come on, bro. What are we really talking about?
Immigrants, and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave, and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years, and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you mentioned,
can't even call it the same thing.
You mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So
yeah.
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have zero immigrants forever, or even zero immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now.
Did y'all hear that? He said there were 90% European, i.e. white immigrants coming from Europe. So his issue isn't open borders. His issue isn't immigration. He just wants more white immigrants, but he's trying to dance around it and try to make it seem like it's not that. He's saying it clearly, but he's just doing this kind of bloviating babble to try to make it seem like that's not, just cut straight to the chase. Piers Morgan should just be cutting straight to the chase. We don't need to hear you dance around it. Okay, you just want more white immigrants. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, not only whites. Yeah, bruh, you just brought up a alleged stat that it was 90% of European immigrants at the time. So just say that that's how you want the numbers to be, like that again, even though many of these groups, regardless of their skin tone, Many of them were classified as white anyways. Palestinians have been classified as white. Lebanese people classified as white. Syrians, Egyptians, all of those Middle Eastern North Africans, because those North Africans will say, hey, yeah, I'm African, but I'm not like those niggas, not like the sub-Saharans. I'm North African. So when they say North African, all they're trying to say is that they're a dark-skinned Caucasian, i.e. Jillian Michaels, who's Syrian, right? She said, I'm like 60% Arab. Arab is not a race. So all she's trying to say is that she's a Middle Eastern white woman. These people know this stuff, but they try to dance around race and ethnicity and act like it's just so confusing to them. They use both interchangeably when it suits them, but it's always in a favor to uplift white supremacy and, knock the blacks down a notch.
Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela.
And I'm going to rewind this back a little bit, but you know what? They always talk about the blacks. What about Chicago? What about Oakland, St. Louis and shit, right? So what is more pressing, right? He says that the issue is Joe Biden, a white dude, flooding the country with tens of millions of illegals. So what shouldn't he be railing against white, powerful, elite white men? Instead, he's always talking about poor gangbangers in the hood, right? Who is the mover and shaker? A gangbanger in the hood that's a jailbird. He's getting locked up for his crimes. You do the crime, you do the time. He's doing the time, but you still keep talking about crime in Chicago. That doesn't affect him. This dude has a security team. He's not worried about crime, and he spends more time talking about black people instead of talking about his main issues. His main issue is too many immigrants are coming in the country. Okay, who is running the country then? Look at what percentage of Congress is white. Look at what percentage of Congress is men. It's overwhelmingly white. It's overwhelmingly white men, overwhelmingly old. The average age of Congress is around like 67. So it's a bunch of old boomers, white men and white women. And he keeps talking about, what about Chicago? This is what you call cowardice. This is definitely intellectual cowardice. He's always looking for a scapegoat, but don't really want to challenge power. He doesn't want to call out white people and white men for this destructive system that they've built, for this dysfunctional system that they built. But he'll be whining about some poor people that has no power. They'll say, look at the blacks. They're low IQ. They're uneducated, thuggish monkeys, right? So that means they're not leading anything, right? They're in no positions of power. They're not moving nothing. They're not shaking anything. They're just irrelevant, low IQ monkeys, right? So shouldn't you shift your focus to the people who are in power? But no, it just reverts back to, oh, you guys, your IQ is so low. So if our IQ is so low, that means we're not running the country. So shouldn't you be attacking the high IQs? Those are the people who's causing you all the problems, right? But it turns into this victimhood where if he sees a black fight video, somehow, that just disturbed his soul and he has to go on this disgusting, hypocritical harangue about it. But, this is, the incels. Is this your king?
El Salvador. And it's so many with no break for assimilation. And they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody's a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed.
Von Bryan says, isn't Piers Morgan questionable as well? Yes, Piers Morgan. That's why I called him the propagandist. And, people will call him a suspected white supremacist. I think he is one. He just tries to be a bit more cunning and like, no, not me, but he has these conversations where he allows people to come on here, spew these talking points. He gives very tepid pushback to try to make it seem like, no, I don't want to censor them. But not only that, hey, I tried to push back, but he's ill prepared to push back when he goes on these anti-black tirades, which he's about to do coming up shortly. But he claims to be a liberal. Piers Morgan claims to be a liberal.
Thousands of people. Maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their.
Exactly, fascism. You hit it right on. Yes, Piers is conservative. See, this is the thing. That's why, especially, let me talk to my black family. Y'all need to ditch those labels. Those labels are not for you. You can behave in a conservative manner or even a liberal manner in the essence of the words, but to try to hold these titles near and dear for you, they didn't make these titles for you. Conservatism. What are you trying to conserve? You know, liberal, Republican, Democrat, none of this stuff was for you. You should be independent, and each party should be vying for your vote, quid pro quo. So don't give me no catfish nuggets. Don't give me no George Floyd statue. I need tangible resources. And Fascism says it's his job to normalize the far right wing using weird debates, a bit like Jubilee. Yeah, and Jubilee is run by some Asian, and all they talk about is black issues. You know, I mean, that's not all they talk about, but when they do like some gender war issues, they'll do like black conservatives versus MAGA, or they'll do like black Americans versus African immigrants. But the dude is Asian. He knows that Asian people delineate. They won't do Chinese immigrants versus Korean immigrants. They won't do Chinese immigrants versus Filipino. So they won't even do Asian immigrants versus the far right, because it's a bunch of like Nick Fuentes types that want the Asians up out of here. But no, they try to drum up conflict by always using black bodies, and then they'll turn around and say they have black fatigue. Fatigue means you're tired of something. Imagine you say you got NFL fatigue, and I say, hey, what you about to go do? About to go watch a football game? You mean NFL? Yeah. I thought you had fatigue. That doesn't make any sense. You have black fatigue, but all you talk about and whine about is black people? Are you kidding me? But let's commence.
Environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on.
Wow. Bruh, you know what? Look, Nick, I normally wouldn't hit you with this because, you know, you're not of that community. But, you know, you're a Nancy boy and you hate my community. So, Nick, I gotta hit you.
And you know what, nigga? You acting like a little bitch right now. You acting like a little bitch right now, nigga. Man, fuck that. I ain't letting that shit ride.
Do y'all hear this moist maniac? So he's saying that Piers Morgan hit a new low. You're attacking my dad, bruh. He brought up an anecdote that you brought up. You put the anecdote out in public. I'm addressing the anecdote. And now you're saying I hit a new low. His dad is a bigot. His dad said, hey, we never going to Applebee's because it's niggers over there. We're never going to Red Lobster because niggers eat there. We're never going to Olive Garden because niggers eat there. And then Piers Morgan is asking him, hey, did you grow up in a racist, bigoted home? And he's saying, that's a new low. You're bringing up my dad. No, he's bringing up your racist, bigoted, disgusting beer belly. I don't even know what your dad looks like, but I can tell he's a loser. He's a loser if he don't want to go to these places because you might, see black people? Let's just say he went to Olive Garden and he's seen some black people eating. If you're eating your food, why the hell are you worried about black people at another table eating? So, and then he doesn't even want to hold that he grew up in a bigoted household. This is where the hypocrisy comes in. This is where the intellectual cowardice comes in. Say it with your chest, right? You're a bigot. You hate black people. Just say it. Don't try to act like your dad wasn't being racist or anything. He was just making jokes. Like, come on, brother. This is some cowardice. And this is why I can't really respect, this version of Nick Fuentes. I want him to let it rip like he usually does, you know what I mean? But he's trying to be mild-mannered because he does want to try to break through the mainstream, but he also can't backtrack fully on his anti-black views. And then, he knows that he can just keep railing against black people, you know what I mean? But as he tries to get mainstream, they're going to keep bringing it up, and he's kind of tired of defending himself. So he tried to pivot a little bit to Israel and it's the Jews, but then he tries to backtrack that and say, no, it's not the Jews. It's just certain Zionists and blah, blah, blah. It's just this dude is all over the place. And many people like this dude, respect him. What is there to respect about him? The dude is some short, sniveling virgin. Nothing wrong with virginity, right? But what could he teach young men about getting women and masculinity, right? He is a self-described incel. If your young man doesn't inspire to be an incel, why the fuck would you listen to Nick Fuentes or Nick Fuentes? But let's get back into it. I'm gonna rewind it a little bit.
Commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'm
not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think
I'm
everybody
not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote.
He just said it's not an ambush, so what the fuck are you whining for, bruh? Stop acting like a little bitch and answer the question. Every other time he want to be calling black people niggers and all this shit, like, come on, bruh, nobody is attacking your bitch ass dad.
That you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my...
Do y'all hear this fool? He just said he's not ambushing them, so why are you whining? He said, I'm not attacking you. I know. So you're crying because of what? Is this your king? This moist maniac?
My assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah.
And also, I got to give a shout out to two prestigious guests, the 504 boy, whoa, they, my New Orleans family, Braxton, and building. Big Rig Slaps coming off of a season 2 of Fire Show. The bro is back like he left some. He back like that repo man, Big Rig Slaps. And building.
No, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents.
He described a racist anecdote with his family. They've never been racist. It's just they did and said some racist stuff. But hey, they're not racist. What the hell is this dude talking about, bruh? Man, this is just some homosexual hypocrisy.
Parents, they used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son.
This makes it even worse. So he's saying that his dad had some class where he were teaching firearms to mostly black people, but his dad didn't want to go to Olive Garden because that's where niggers eat. But no, my dad's not racist. He taught some classes to black people. Like, did they pay him for that class? Was he getting paid for that class? So yeah, he probably was doing his job and got paid for it. So that doesn't mean anything. That this dude is just sounding stupider by the minute.
Fun at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the south side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, and the West Side.
Here he goes with this ethnic shit again, bro. Your family is white. What the fuck does that mean? My family was ethnics. Your family was Irish, which was white. Your family was Italian, which was white. And you had a white Mexican family member. What ethnic are you talking about? And see, this is where they try to like kind of confuse you and stuff. When he goes to check a box, he doesn't check ethnic. He checks white. And then when you call him white, I'm ethnic. No, you're the box that you checked.
On Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years.
So which one is it? He said he grew up in the town that he lived in was mostly white. Now he's turning around and saying he grew up around black people. What black people did he grow up around? This dude is lying and giving fucking hypocritical myths just in real time. He said the town that he grew up in was predominantly white. And now he's saying his experiences are shaped around the black people he grew up around. What black people? What, you randomly seen some black people at school? He lived in the burbs. And then he said his grandma lived in the project. So he's basing black people off of the black people he met in the project. Okay, cool. Have y'all went to Kensington and Philadelphia? It's a bunch of zonked out white fentanyl and meth heads. Should I judge the white community by that? Do y'all know about a place called Appalachia? Do y'all know about Owsley County, Kentucky, where it's 99% white and 99% of them are on welfare? Should I judge the white community by that? But that's what they do. They go to the hood and say, see, look, this is how niggas act. So that's how the black community acts. I say, fine, hold your own nuts, hold your own stereotypes. So when I go to these areas and I see these disgusting white people with needles in their veins and stuff, hey, you know, I have to generalize the white community, right? Same energy, same logic.
The older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up.
Before I even let him finish, I don't even know why he's saying this. He's saying the older generations of black people were very respectful and all this stuff. And guess what? They still got called nigger. There were respectful people that got lynched. People got respectfully redlined. People got denied jobs respectfully. They got disrespectfully incarcerated. So who cares if they were respectful? Guess who wasn't respectful when he came over? A bunch of Irish immigrants, a bunch of Italian immigrants. They were fighting and slaughtering each other in the streets. That wasn't respectful. Have y'all seen the gangs of New York? Yeah, that's a depiction of what actually happened. So I don't even know why he's trying to play this respectability politics when he's against this stuff. And then he's trying to act like you can just behave your way into liking them. I'm sure there are a bunch of respectful people that go to Olive Garden, but if they're black, I don't want to go there because they're niggers. So I don't even know why he's even talking about the black older people who were respectful. You know, there were white supremacist wackos like Dylan Roof who went in and shot up a bunch of respectful black people in a black church. So what respect has it gotten people? And then while he's disrespecting us, he wants to harken back to a time where, yeah, man, those old boomers, they used to be so respectful. So you mean that they would just let you spit on them and call them nigger and they wouldn't say something? Yeah, that's kind of what I like. He wants us in fear and in terror and just kind of groveling down to him. This dude is a propagandist and a pipsqueak. Like, look at this dude. He haven't even got close to even sniff no coochie. Would any dude, like, what masculine male will want to listen to this dweeb?
And a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people, and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event, and they light up the trees, and there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year, and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's how many times have y'all heard me say this on here? People with the same black people have an accountability problem. What accountability has he taken? He didn't take accountability for his dad and his dad's racism. He's not even taking accountability for his own racism. But he's trying to wag his finger at the black community. Not only that, he was railing against Biden, a white man who let in tens of millions of illegal immigrants, right? That's what he said. Why is he not talking about accountability for the white community? Like I said, what is more of an issue that he's talking about some random shooting in Chicago or tens of millions of unvetted illegals? Which one is a more pressing issue for you? And then he's saying there's an accountability issue. Well, was that person locked up? Because if he was locked up, charged, and given football numbers, guess what you would call that? Accountability. So there will be a drive-by, some dude gets shot, right? They find the dude and lock him up, and they say, the black community needs to hold him accountable. How the fuck am I going to hold him accountable? He's already been held accountable by the judges, by the cops, the court of law. That's why he's behind bars. That's accountability. You do the crime, you do the time equals accountability. Meanwhile, you got somebody like Trump. What accountability has Trump taken? He has 30 plus felony charges, convictions, or whatever, right? Where was the accountability from white people? Instead, they said, hell, let's go vote for him. Donald Trump was with one of the most preeminent pedos in U.S. history. That Jeffrey guy. Where was the accountability from Trump? The dude released some files that's redacted and doesn't tell you nothing. It's a nothing burger. Where's the accountability for that?
You have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think.
And then here's the lie. He just said that there were some black people who feel the same as him. And then he turns in the next sentence and say, oh man, black people are never ashamed. But I thought you just said a bunch of black people agree with you. Which one is it? The dude is a hypocrite and a liar. He's lying right in front of Piers Morgan's face. Piers Morgan ain't gonna say nothing because he brought him on here to get this stuff out. And then he'll give this mild pushback to try to act like, no, I didn't agree with them. I pushed back. No, you didn't. You just let him go off the rails, lying, just lie after lie after lie. Does this sound like black fatigue or black obsession?
There's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And
but you grew up around mostly white. So why are you talking about how diverse your city is? It doesn't matter if a city is diverse. Cities are segregated. Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in America. So what the fuck is he talking about diversity? He said that he lived by mostly white people. So where is the diversity? Yeah, there's some diversity that he lived next to some meth heads. He lives next to some incestuous people. He lived next to some doctors. He lived next to some pedos. That was the diversity. And guess what? The majority of them were white.
And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
Staying late again? Yep, got prospect calls to summarize. You really need to switch to Mondays.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before.
You got
in America.
A knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with.
He is definitely spineless. He's a coward. And this is a form of manufacturing consent. It's supposed to make him look good. Like, look, I brought the bigot on and I challenged him. No, you didn't. You just let him spew lie after lie. If you was unprepared, Piers, why'd you even ask for this dude to come on? So all Piers Morgan got from this was 100,000 plus live viewers. It's already got at least over 1 million views. So this was just a money grab. And for Piers to continuously up his profile and say, I'll have a tough interview with anyone. But yeah, you won't push back, at least not when it comes to black people. Once they get to Jewish people, yeah, I'm sure Piers Morgan is going to be foaming at the mouth. But the anti-black vitriol is supposed to be normalized. So Piers Morgan is just kind of letting him get this off, and then he'll chime in about something irrelevant, but he won't address any of the lies. And Piers Morgan has fact checkers in real time, and he's just letting this dude just lie and go off the rails on this harangue.
Violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that anecdote, which just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story. Right, and you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this.
No, but you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain.
You see how he gets all triggered? You said this. Yeah, he's saying it again because you didn't answer the question. And this is the intellectual cowardice of him. See, he likes to go off the rails and say all this bigoted stuff. But then when someone challenges on him, he tries to make it seem like, oh, you guys are just holding me to what I work. Yeah, you got to stand on what you said. If you say something, other people will make you stand on it. Why would he be any different? See, he wants to just be able to blurt out all sorts of racial epithets, call people nigger here and stuff, but he's always saying it around comfortable people. He says it around coons and sambos and tethers that he knows that agree with him. He knows that they're buck broken, so they're not going to challenge him. He knows Piers Morgan is just only on here to help him get his views out. They go back and forth to make it seem like a sport. It's just almost like WWE, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Undertaker. They're under the same league, under the same organization, WWF, WWE. You think like Undertaker really hates Stone Cold Steve Austin? That's all this is, man. Political theater, nothing more.
Restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well... See here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real.
And actually, I believe Nick is going to pull one of those. And as soon as he do, I'm going to have to break it down. But yes, many people do say that. Nick already tried to say that. He said, well, the black people in Chicago agree with me. And then he turned around and lied and said, well, there just is no shame. There just is no accountability. But you just said it was groups, hordes of black people that agree with you. So do they agree with you or not? Are they ashamed and embarrassed or not? And then let's just say, okay, cool. We're embarrassed by the degenerate behavior in Chicago. Name one white person that say they were embarrassed by these school mass deletions by white people. They don't even say, oh, I feel ashamed as a white person. They try to say it's the Democrats. Okay, cool. Let's just say it was the Democrats. The Democrats, especially the leadership, are predominantly what racial group?
Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you told
no.
Oh my goodness. Did y'all hear him? I had a black friend in first grade, bruh. You're almost damn near 30 years old now. And you talking about your black friend in first grade? He wouldn't say, oh no, he couldn't say that I have a black friend and, you know, we hang out all the time. He went back to first grade to say that he has a black friend. And just like Von Bryant says, pitiful. It's not just only pitiful, it is rather pathetic.
Story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat.
And look at him making these stupid faces like he's confused. His dad says some racist shit. He calls him on it, asks him, and now he's acting all confused. And this dude is supposed to be an intellectual. He's supposed to be a high IQ. Is this your king?
Are you saying,
No.
well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying.
See, this is cowardly. It was said in jest. What the hell does that mean? If you say, do y'all say racist stuff and say it was said in jest, right? Fuck your mama. Oh, no, I said that in jest. You know what I mean? Your mama ain't shit but a bitch and a trick. No, it was a joke. I said it in jest. So he'll say the most offensive, derogatory, racist stuff and then say it was a joke. It was in jest. What the fuck does that mean? And he'll never say this in jest stuff to people's face. He'll always say it behind the screen because he's a dork and a dweeb.
To spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way, 60. Right? You were born in what, 19? Yeah. So you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can.
But now he's saying it's a joke. But when he gave the anecdote, he didn't mention that it was a joke. So now he's trying to spin it and walk it back and make it seem like it was a joke. And he's trying to make it seem like it was just his dad. It's not just your dad who feels that way. You feel the same way as your dad. So why are you throwing your dad under the bus and trying to say, oh, my dad said this in jest as a joke? So if I say fuck your mama in jest as a joke, and then somebody else agrees with me, you know what I mean? We both said that. So him agreeing with his dad, because he's not going to throw his dad under the bus for what he said. He's trying to obfuscate and make it seem like it was something else. So your dad is racist. And by extension, you are racist because you agree with your dad, not just for this anecdote, but because of the other views that you espouse. He's called himself racist before. But now because he wants to try to be mainstream and he wants to be the new Tucker Carlson and Rush Limbaugh, he's trying to walk his stuff back a little bit, but he knows that the anti-blackness is what got him to these heights. So he can't truly walk that back. He's just trying to reframe and repackage it, but it's still the same stuff. Would you rather someone calling you a nigger to your face or someone, you know, smiling, but then behind the scenes, they work to undermine you and they still call you a nigger anyways? It's just, you don't hear them call it. I'd rather someone say it to my face so I could know how to deal with this person accordingly. But with him, you know, he likes to kind of hide behind and play these little word games because he thinks he's smarter than he actually is.
Make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke. Okay. I want to come to.
So he just said he knows what Piers is going to do. So what are you crying about? He keeps crying at Piers Morgan, bringing up his words and his anecdotes and is trying to get him to expound on what he said. And now he's trying to act like Piers is playing some gotcha when you just said that you know what he's doing. So stop whining, man. This dude is just a little moist maniac.
To something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Oh, so
So here he goes with the lies and the word games again. So it's less than 1% of black people that commit violent crime, but they want you to think, you know, that it's just this epidemic. He says a number which is much higher. It's not even 1%. He says 5%, right? So let's just go with that number, 5%. If it was 5% of black men committing violent crime, right? Guess what else? There's a number on the opposite end. The number on the opposite end of 5% is 95. So that would mean 95% are not doing it. Why the fuck will we focus on the 5% that's allegedly doing all of these violent crimes when you got 95% that's not doing it, right? Because I'm sure we can say, if you look at the percentage of bestiality crimes, you know what bestiality is? You know, people fondling animals and pets and, you know, sticking their man meat into, you know, pets, putting them in their orifices. Look at what group is overwhelmingly disproportionately represented in that. Ain't no black men, right? Should I generalize the whole group as animal fuckers? Right. But, you know, with us, he wants to try to say that 1 in 20 black men, like, bro, where are these stats even coming from? And then when he tries to cite his sources from someone that's not even verified, a source that's on Twitter that hates black people.
Talking about black people who murder people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
You
the
just
crime
said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I think, yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think?
And then not only that, why is he obsessed with black people? When you look at gangs specifically, right? They'll say Latinos is a larger ethnic group, which is, you know, some kind of scientific racism and, you know, ethnic babble. Technically, we are the second largest ethnic group, but what they did is they've made Hispanic into this pseudo race / ethnic category. And then they'll say, oh, look, it's more Hispanics than you. But that just means that they just lumped a bunch of Mexicans, Brazilians, Hondurans, Venezuelan. They've lumped them all in together and tried to make them into one like ethnic group. Meanwhile, the foundational black Americans, just us alone, is estimated in between 43 to 50 million. And of that, they say 10% are like immigrants. So 90% of our actual racial and ethnic group are actually from the soil, non-immigrants. when you look at Hispanics, the majority of them are immigrants. There's a book called Making Hispanics, because Hispanic is not a race. They're trying to make it a race in 2030. But I'm going to break that down here in a second here. But why is he always talking about the blacks? The Hispanic gangs are bigger, they're more violent, they're more organized. But he doesn't even mention them at all. It's just like the blacks need to be in prison. Okay, fine. Let's just say you lock every black person up. You think that the Asian people are not going to still have these illicit massage parlors and these triad gangs? You think that the Latino, the Mexican mafia, the cartel, the Colombian cartel, you think they're just going to cease to exist, right? Think about this. El Chapo made billions, not millions, not thousands, billions with the B, off of brutalizing his own people, right? Drugs, murder, mayhem. But they don't talk at that. That's Hispanic culture, right? So they'll lock up a bunch of black dudes that was selling nickels and dimes on the corner. See, those niggas is just like that. Meanwhile, you got Latinos in Colombia, Bogota, right? Venezuela, Trinidad, right? Selling metric tons of certain drugs. But nobody is talking about culture. Nobody is talking about fatherless homes. Nobody is talking about kids out of wedlock. Nobody is talking about IQ. But they keep talking about the blacks, right? They'll turn around and say, you guys have no power. You don't produce anything. You guys don't produce guns. You're not the plug. You don't produce guns. But wouldn't that mean the people who are producing guns, that's their culture? So if a black dude gets an illegal gun that he bought from a non-black person, it's black culture for him to buy the gun, but it's not Asian culture for them to sell the gun. It's not Latino culture for them to be the plug. Does this shit make any sense to you? But to a bunch of Sambos, tethers, bed wenches, and buck broken buffoons, it does make sense what Nick is saying. But this dude is a loser and a lunatic, and this shit could be easily debunked.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20.
So looks like we got a Nick Fuentes stan in the chat. Workers, not thinker. You're definitely not a thinker. And you look like a dweeb. Is that your picture too? Get Nick Fuentes nuts out your mouth. But are you his boyfriend? Are you his illegitimate boyfriend that he haven't came out the closet about? Asians ain't using the gun. Why ain't you put aren't? Aren't you part of the high IQ community? They always talk about us. Y'all, we was kings. We can't speak. Why are you using ain't? Why doesn't it just say aren't? Learn how to spell. Learn how to speak grammatically correct. We got the Nick Fuentes fanboys in the chat.
20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
You just said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
You think it's funny or?
I do. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, that's even worse. You got an AI profile pic because you're an incel loser lunatic who's scared to show his face. So that's okay. Go back to being an incel and, whacking off and rubbing one out to Nick Fuentes' voice. That's what you little Nancy boys do. Yeah, sure you are black. What black person that puts a white dude as an AI profile pic? Are you that buck broken? When you see black dudes, and this dude is not black, he's a troll, but even if he was black, which he's not, these are the buck broken, brain dead buffoons that we're talking about. The ones that don't just kiss butt, they put both hands firmly on the cheeks, spread the cheeks apart, lick the crack up and down and all around. And look at them. They're better than us. I mean, yeah, I know you ain't black. No apostrophe, no nothing. Yeah, you are one of the Nick Fuentes incels. One of the incel minions.
I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love.
So here he goes again with a lie. And some people will try to say it's hyperbole. No, it's a lie. He said blacks are his biggest fans. So if black people are his biggest fans, why are he saying don't go to Olive Garden because it's niggers there? But I thought those niggers were your biggest fans. Right? So blacks are his biggest fans. He said he had a black friend in first grade. So that's why I'm spewing all this anti-black stuff, because they love me and they love me so much, but I just don't want to live around those niggers. Do y'all hear what this fool is saying? He's just lying. He's being very hypocritical. I don't hate anyone. It's just I don't want to go to a restaurant with niggers and I don't want the niggers in my neighborhood, but I don't hate niggers. Okay.
Of your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago.
But he doesn't live in the hood and he doesn't live in the ghetto. So why is he even caring, right? So on one hand, they'll be talking about what about black on black crime, but they don't really care about black on black crime. Shouldn't black people be focused on black crime, and shouldn't white people be focused on white crime? Instead, blacks are focused on black crime, which is why we're the only ones who even use that goofy ass term. Crime is just crime, right? It has no color, right? But show me the litany of prominent elite sophisticated white people talking about how they're going to stop the white on white crime epidemic. There'll be a bunch of white people, a dweeb like Nick Fuentes who has security, doesn't live nowhere near blacks. He already said that he lives by mostly whites. But who's he talking about? All he talks about is blacks. Blacks need to do this. Blacks need to do that. You mean the blacks that you don't live by? You mean the blacks that have nothing to do with your life? But he needs the blacks to try to create this boogeyman to try to galvanize his incel groypers, because he has a bunch of fat, sloppy, out of shape dweebs who's never even got close to sniffing a coochie. So, they get hard off, being vitriolic towards blacks. That's how they orgasm, by, seeing this kind of, anti-black trauma porn.
You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No.
So he's fact checking them, calling him out on his lies, but no, he wants to try to double down. No, it's 1 in 20. Okay, cite your source and look and listen to the source.
So 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that...
Did you hear what he said? 1 in 20 will eventually. So what is this Minority Report where they're trying to predict and say, okay, we don't have any proof, but we predict that they will commit a murder? Come on, man. This is just some pseudo-scientific racism babble. So he's trying to assume that they'll commit a crime, but he can't give the numbers of those who actually committed a crime.
You're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say?
Piers is going off of official crime statistics. Nick, the alleged high IQ groyper or gaper, is going off of some shit that he heard on Twitter.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you.
Who has heard of Data Hazard? Piers is citing shit from the US.gov and he's citing shit from Twitter, some channel called Data Hazard that hates black people. I mean, which one is more credible?
But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay.
Alarming for who? If black people are allegedly so, violent towards blacks, then you have nothing to worry about, Nick. You have security. You're just a little gay kid living in a gated community. Nothing is going to happen to you. You're part of the LGBT community. You're part of a protected group. And you got security. And you got the lunatic Groyper gang to have your side. Like what are you talking about? And then here we go, another faceless troll saying, bro, it's just hating. I ain't hating. There's nothing to hate on. Why would you hate on this dude? Look at this dude. He's a dork. You don't even have you won't even put a profile pic. So, I could tell that you're an incel. Look at your name, Shadow Knoll. Come on, bruh.
But you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean,
So here it goes again. He was talking about accountability. Now he deflects. He said a lot of white people commit murder. That would be the time for him to take accountability. Instead, he's about to go into this per capita argument. And the new word for per capita, it's about proportion, right? Bruh, he's talking about white people committing murder. Yeah, but the blacks do it too. Imagine someone is like, hey, bruh, did you rape that woman? Yeah, but the blacks did it too. Blacks rape too. Like, come on, bruh. That shit wouldn't fly with nothing else. If you said, hey, so-and-so is a pedo. Yeah, but this black person was a pedo too. Like, come on, bruh. None of that shit would fly. But with him going on this deranged, incoherent, insidious rant, we're just supposed to trust him? Come on, man. This dude is a straight up clown.
that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it.
Yeah, whenever you go against these white supremacist wackos, you always get trolls in the chat. But notice all the trolls, they never show their face, right? They won't put a profile pic up. And every time they do have a profile pic, it's always an AI generated. Sometimes they'll have a picture of Kirby, you feel me? A picture of Jigglypuff, everything but they face. They always got something to say. They never hit panels. And if they do hit panels, they don't want to show their face. Show your face and stand on something. You feel me? There's no page that you can point to where they're showing their face. You know what I mean? But they want to kind of troll in the chat. That just lets you know that you're not equipped to challenge me. You're not formidable.
In front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65%.
No, it's about accountability.
Of the population, blacks are 13%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet.
So here he keeps saying proportionally. Proportionally is so he could try to get away from the raw numbers. You know what I mean? So if there's 500 murders in the black community, but there's 5,000 in the white community, they're trying to say, yeah, but proportionally based on the population size, you guys commit crime at a higher rate. But the raw numbers will say, hypothetically, black are responsible for 500 murders and whites are responsible for 5,000 murders. And instead of saying, okay, damn, 5,000, that's a lot more than 500. They'll say, yeah, but we're the majority of the population. But hold on, you guys said that this was a Christian nation and you guys have all of this virtue and these values and this righteousness and benevolence. So why the hell are y'all committing crime at all? See, y'all called us low IQ, savage, thuggish monkeys. So if we were out there committing crime, isn't that just our culture? Isn't that just inherent to us, right? Isn't that what y'all say? But y'all are supposed to be the goody two shoes angelic people. So why are y'all committing crime at all? And instead of holding accountability, he tries to bring up, but per capita. Like, this dude is a joke.
People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
what's with the
shootings-
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified.
And it looks like we've been joined by a prestigious guest. This woman is a political dynamo, so make sure y'all go over, subscribe to the channel, get some good games. She's going to be breaking down extremely pressing issues. I haven't seen her make no what about Chicago content. She gonna touch on stuff that's really gonna impact your life, you know what I mean? Instead, this dude is railing against crime stats in Chicago when he lives in a gated community with security. So don't listen to dweebs like Nick Fuentes. Well, you can listen to him, just don't take him seriously. And sub to Ronnie Q in the building.
People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at...
And Tom says, pit bulls and golden retrievers both maul people too. White people focus on pits only. Yeah. Rottweilers maul people. German shepherds. German shepherds are some of the most violent dogs ever known to man. When the Nazis was over there using them as attack dogs, when they were sicking dogs on people, a lot of times they were German shepherds, you know what I mean? But they're also some of the smartest dogs, some of the loyal dogs. So do you want to focus on how violent they can be or how great of dogs they are overall? And that's what people try to do too. Pit bulls are not just naturally violent dogs. If you raise your dog up, if you raise a pit in a loving home on a farm where they're loved and they're around kids and all this stuff versus you chain a pit bull up into the junkyard, you know what I mean, and have it malnourished, those are the same species of dog, same breed of dog, but you're not going to have the same temperament, the same outcome. People know this. You become a product of your environment. That's why the white people work so hard to make sure that their kids don't go to school in the hood. If your kids was so good, right, and their IQ was so high, they should be able to go to public schools and succeed. But they know that if they go to public schools, they'll become a product of their environment. No, but y'all told me personal responsibility, right? So they should be able to go to these schools in the dilapidated areas and still excel and still succeed. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch. Your kids should be able to excel without a free lunch, right? Without the backing. Ain't that what they tell kids in the hood? So they send these kids to failing schools in the hood and say, y'all should be on the same level as some kid who went to some private Catholic school. Shit don't even make sense, bruh.
Even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is
Hey, this is a great point. Yeah, pits actually have inflated statistics because they get misidentified. Yeah, there'll be a pit mixed with Labrador, mixed with Chihuahua, mixed with Poodle, mixed with Dalmatian. But as soon as that pit bites someone, they ain't gonna say it's a mutt. They ain't gonna say it's a mixed breed. They gonna say that it's a pit bull. And that's kind of how the delineation process is as well. If there's a black person who's mixed, you know, they may be air quote black, but also white, mixed with some Hispanic, mixed with some Asian, they do a crime, they're black. Nah, that person is mixed. You know what I mean? That person is half black, half white. Why we can't say a white person did a crime? Nah, he's black. You know, suddenly there's no statistics for mixed people doing crime. So if you're mixed and you do a crime, suddenly you become black. Why they don't have a category of people who are just black, people who are mixed, people who are that? It's just to inflate the numbers and, you know, paint black people as we're just the pit bulls and all this shit like that. But let's commence.
These people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
Now he's bringing up Daniel Penny, who choked out a frail black man on a subway. The black man was yelling. He was belligerent. He was high out of his mind, but he didn't touch anyone. They said that he was threatening people, but words is not physical assault. So he choked this man out. There were some tethers on there that helped him do it. And guess what? White people raised over $3 million for this dude choking out a black dude in the name of, oh, he was just protecting people. So I've seen a lot of belligerent white people yelling at people, calling people niggers, threatening people. If I choked them out, they wouldn't consider that an act of heroism. But with Daniel Penny, Trump was trotting them around. People were just acting like this dude. Not only that, this dude was a Marine or something like that. He knew how long to hold this dude. The dude was frail. He didn't pose any threat, but he choked him out. And Nick Fuentes is over here acting like, hey, he was justified. People just don't want to, people just don't want to deal with that. So it's like, okay, cool. Well, I mean, it's a lot of whacked out homeless white people in places like Kensington and other places. So is he truly advocating that they should be choked out because they're having some mental episode? No, he won't say that towards white people, but he will advocate for black homeless people, mentally deranged people being choked out and punished.
Also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person.
And this is corny, bro. Y'all got to, first of all, you can see the name and see that it's a troll. You know what I mean? Like, but look, we was kings and shit. Like, come on, bro. Y'all got to, bruh, y'all bigots. Y'all got to get a new playbook. A lot of y'all be on that. We was Vikings. A lot of y'all think y'all was Vikings. You weren't. And guess who the Vikings were killing? There weren't a lot of black people around. There were no black people around, according to y'all, right? So who were the Vikings slaughtering? The Vikings were slaughtering other white people. Pull up any Viking movie and see who the Vikings are killing. Other white people, white on white crime. And then they praise that. They praise that as their culture. Yeah, that is your culture of degeneracy, murder, mayhem, and barbarism against your own people. Yeah, we was Vikings and shit.
I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's right.
So he wants white kids. Why didn't he say, I don't want my kids bringing home blacks, Asians, or anyone else, only white people? He's only singling out blacks. But you said you want white kids, right? So that means that you should only want your white kids to date white people. But he didn't single out any other group except for black people, because that's all they care. They'll say they only want white kids, but most of these white dweebs like that, they get a lot of Asian people. And then you ask them, are Asians white? No, but they're the model minority. So this is the hypocrisy. Many of them say, oh, they're against immigrants, and a lot of them are married to immigrants, i.e. J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is always trying to push this preservation of whiteness, and then he look at his wife, some brown chick from India who's a Hindu.
For me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really.
So he said, call him racist. People call him racist. He said he didn't give a fuck. And then he starts whining that people are calling him racist. Yeah, they're doing what you said. They're calling you what you said you were and how you behave. And then he starts whining once you call him a racist, which he actually is.
Unless you want to say that's another of your jokes, but you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist.
Now he's trying to pivot. So if everybody's racist, that means that you're clearly racist. So when people call you racist, what is the issue? What is the issue from people calling you racist, bringing up your racist stuff? Then he took offense to him calling his dad. Do y'all hear the hypocrisy? Remember, he just said that his dad wasn't racist and he took offense. That was a new low. You calling my dad racist. And now, minutes later, he's saying that everybody is racist. So if everybody is racist, guess what that would make your dad? Racist? And this is supposed to be a high IQ dude?
Everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you went.
So now he said everybody is racist, but white people are not. Like, what the fuck is this dude talking about, bruh? This is incoherent, brain dead babble. Let me rewind it back just to hear how stupid this dude sounds.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids and I don't want my.
Not only that, nobody gives a fuck. No blacks. It's just like, oh, Nick Fuentes doesn't want to live next to us. No one cares. Why are you announcing this to the world? He lives mostly around whites anyway. So what the fuck is he crying for? This is white victimhood. I don't want to live next to blacks. No one is fucking forcing you.
White kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
Once again, if it's racial, why he didn't bring up any other race? If it's racial, why did he only bring up black people? Are there other races outside of black people? So why didn't he bring up the other races?
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically sure.
Yeah, because my father's...
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Damn, man, this dude, is he even listening to himself? He says his father doesn't share his same views. It doesn't matter if your father shares those same views because you said everyone is racist. Doesn't matter. You didn't say only the people that share my views are racist. You said everyone is racist. That would mean your dad. Now he's trying to backtrack and say, no, my dad doesn't share my views. Actually, your dad does. Your dad said he doesn't want to go to Olive Garden because niggers go there. He doesn't want to go to Applebee's because niggers go there. And then he turns around and say his dad doesn't share his views. And then he also turns around to say everyone is racist, except for your dad who calls black people niggers. Does this shit make any sense to you?
Racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody, the difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear.
Y'all see the victimhood? He's saying his father is being attacked. All he did was bring up an anecdote that Nick put out publicly. And he's asking his hey, is your dad a racist? Was you raised up in a bigoted household? You're attacking my dad. Like, come on, bruh. Stop being a little bitch.
Yeah, I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me...
What is he doing besides asking you to stand on what you already said? You knew what you were doing when you were being a racist, disgusting, grotesque, anti-black bigot. You knew what you were doing. All he's doing is asking you and trying to get you to stand on it. Say it with your chest. Don't bitch out now.
Looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on...
And fascism says his hand is weird. Yeah, his hand remind me of, y'all seen Scary Movie? It's my strong hand. Yeah, that's what this dude looks like. And his hand, it looks kind of blurry because since the dude, like I said, he hasn't even got in sniffing range of the cooch. So, you know, the dude is always kind of whacking off. And apparently, allegedly, he has a boyfriend. So he's probably whacking other dudes off too.
Skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, That's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
And shout out to the bro, Big Rig. I got 10 in the chat. All I need is 10 for the win. Love y'all. We back again.
Okay, so we closed the doors to the opportunity that Tony and I shared at the AI Advantage Summit.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's.
Here we go. More victim shit. So he put a story out into the ether, out into the internet, the universe, the Thunderdome. He put a story out. No one forced him to tell this story. There was no gun to his head to tell this story. He's talking about that they were just jokes and he was saying it in jest. He said in jest, don't go to Applebee's, niggers eat there. Don't go to Olive Garden, niggers eat there. And now he's trying to say, oh yeah, you're trying to paint my dad to look like a racist and he had a job. Didn't your daddy have a job before you told that anecdote? So here is this victimhood. What do they always try to say? Black people have a victim mentality. Doesn't he sound like a victim? No one forced him to put the story out. Is his dad a victim? So what if your dad loses his job? That's what America is, right? Consequences. You have the freedom of speech, but not the freedom of consequence. So if your dad loses job saying because he don't want to go to Olive Garden and see niggers, then hey, so be it. This is America.
Racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low. And I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views. And I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk? Okay, listen, that's fine.
And this is cowardly too, because he's always talking about people's dad. I don't like Tucker Carlson, but he talked about Tucker Carlson dad a lot. He's talked about a lot of people's dad and other people's family dynamics. But see, when you start to talk about him, he starts folding under pressure. And people like this dude. This dude is not astute. He's not an intellectual. He's not formidable at all. He talks to people that's going to give him light pushback. He hangs around Sambos, tethers, and raccoons. So he thinks like, hey, I have a black friend. So they're okay with me calling them niggers and talking about Chicago and shit like that. As soon as he gets mild pushback, because Piers Morgan is giving him the friendly, mild pushback, he can't even handle this. This dude is a joke.
Fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not. So
it's
fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was...
And just in case I didn't give you a shout out, M3, Knowledge and Relationships, salute in the building.
Racist. It's fine for you to do that, but if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay.
Did y'all just hear that? This dude goes on a vile, racist tirade, and then Piers Morgan asks him about it, and Piers Morgan is being unreasonable, and he asks him, he's like, yes, I'll rewind that back. See, he wants to make it mainstream, but like I said, too many of his anti-Black and anti-Semitic views are catching up. So he's trying to still maintain those views, but he's trying to further sanitize them so he can get invited on shows like this. He wants to go on CNN. He wants to go on The View and become this villain. So as much as he's always railing against the establishment and the elites, he wants to be part of the club.
Then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
So
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
And they will.
Yeah, and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me. with your own words.
With their own words. That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about...
If you knew it would be like this, why are you complaining? Fight through it. Stop being a little bitch.
Racism.
I do.
Let's talk about racism. Let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine.
So y'all heard that. He admits that he's a racist. So there's no point to cry when people calls him a racist. So I wonder, is he going to admit to being an anti-Semite? So he'll admit to be a racist, but not an anti-Semite? Interesting. So imagine someone saying, man, I admit to being a hustler. I admit to being a pedo. I admit to being anything. And you call them what they admit to be. And it's like, you can't say that. Like, bruh, you just said what you were. I'm just affirming it.
You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly.
Von Bryan says this dude is sick. I think that's putting it mildly. This dude is sick. This dude is grotesque. This dude is detestable.
People who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. I want to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by
that? Absolutely.
If you've ever dreamed of owning an apartment complex and you live near one of these cities, then you've got to see the same ad that I saw 3 years ago.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Don't they already do that? Do you know what a NIMBY is? A not in my backyard? Redlining? White people have always went out of their way to avoid black people. Most white people don't live anywhere near black people. And here's this white victimhood still. We need to stay away from the blacks. Bruh, you already away from us and you still bitching about us. That's not black fatigue. That's black obsession. You living in a lily white neighborhood, no black faces in sight. And all you want to do is go on black.com and watch some Mandingo BBC rail some little pretty blonde girl. And then you talking about you got black fatigue. You looking up black fight videos, talking about you got black fatigue. You listening to Kendrick and NBA Youngboy, talking about you got black fatigue.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these...
This is more victimhood narrative. He's saying white people have been beaten into submission. What submission? You got Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, Benny Johnson, Tim Pool. You got a litany of vile anti-black bigots. You got a bunch of black raccoons that's co-signing this stuff. So what the fuck is he talking about? Every day it's a fucking white podcast whining about black people. Where are they beat into submission? Every day. Black people do this. Black people do that. Black people do this. Like, no one is scared to voice their opinion. So here he is with this victimhood that white people just can't talk about those niggers the way we want to. Yeah, every day on X, guess what the most used slur is, right? As much as people hate, it's the Jews. Why they don't call them the K word, right? People are like, hey, what is the Jewish slur, right? They don't even know what it is, but everybody knows what nigger means, right? So what the fuck is he talking about? Every day he's whining against black people. No one is stopping him from saying it. He's on a platform where they had 100,000+ people live viewing this, and he's calling black people nigga and talking about crime stats. And now he's acting like a victim, like someone's is canceling him. He just can't talk about it. Every platform you go on, you talk about the same shit. You're not censored.
Major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina. There is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control.
What danger, though? Like he just said, oh, yeah, most of the crime that black people are doing is against black people. Most crime is intraracial. The 94% of black people commit crime against black people. 88% of white people commit crime against white people. So he should be afraid of white people committing a crime with him. But what is he always talking about? Black people, when he just said that he doesn't want to be around them. So he's not around the black people. He's just feeding his timeline with some anti-black videos and just saying, stay away from them. But you're already away from them. What the fuck are you complaining about?
Control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality. A red line.
No one said that. Show me a quote. And I don't support the BLM organization. I support the movement in terms of, calling out the injustices of police brutality. But someone find some literature that says black people, we're acting this way because of police brutality. No one said that. This is just him lying and just trying to paint a narrative out there.
Or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them.
So once again, you see how he jumps. He said a lot of cities did. He didn't say that Chicago defunded the police. Now he said people were calling for the police to be abolished. Most people were not calling that. If anything, black people were calling for more police, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it was black people that were calling for more police. And then they'll find, some random, tether or mixed person who claims to be black and saying that, hey, abolish all the police, right? So if you got 100 people and they're like, hey, we support the police. We just don't support police brutality. And as one that says abolish the police, they're going to interview and uplift that one person. And defund the police, all it means in essence is the reallocation of funds. But what is going to get more people's attentions? Defund the police or reallocate the funds in the police, right? Which one has a more sloganizing essence to it? You know what I mean? So that's all it was just a slogan, maybe misguided for some. But yes, what do they always say? You can't just throw money at the problem. But when it comes to police, what do they want to do? Throw money at the problem. The police have been failing year after year after year. They complain about crime. So is crime going down? So if crime is going down, it's trending in the right direction. So why are you still whining about crime? And then y'all say you can't throw money at the problem, right? So why are you not thinking about alternative solutions to combat crime? Instead, see, when it's you niggers don't need reparations. You don't need anything economically tangible. But with the cops, they always need money. They'll say they fear for their life. They got a dog. They got a taser that can hit you running away. They got ARs, M16s. They got flashbangs, frag grenades. They got robot dogs. They got tanks. They got helicopters. And guess what they gonna say? I feared for my life. They got backup, but they don't want you to have anything. And now what are they saying? Oh, yeah, crime is out of control, but just give us more money and then we'll get crime in control. And then every year they talk about how crime is out of control and just give us more money. We keep giving y'all more money out the taxpayers' dollars and y'all ain't solving shit. Why the fuck do y'all need more money?
It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city.
And he's lying, man. Where are my Chicago folks at? They're trying to make, and I get it, it's funny, right? Chirac making it seem Chirac, Chicago is a war zone. No, it's not. And even if it was a war zone, it would be a war zone in an isolated, centralized area that's predominantly impoverished. Nick doesn't live over there. He lives in a lily white burb gated community with security. So why is he crying? He's just like these fucking cops. They have all of this protection around him and they're still whining about safety.
You might get shot. You might get mugged. Someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger.
Hey, look at this shit. So y'all already heard somebody say we was kings and shit. Now we was poor and shit, like the trolls is coming out. But like I told you, they never want to show their face. They always got some weird type of photo and they're not witty. I mean, like, this is corny, bro. This shit ain't funny at all. You are a low IQ lunatic. You are an incel. Go back to jerking off to Nick Fuentes, bruh. You're not intellectually formidable.
The crew of them, they do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew, and they pretend to be a friendly stranger.
And shout out to Vaughn. Are you still living in the Chi? Because Vaughn says, I'm from Chicago. I guarantee you he would not step foot in some of those neighborhoods. And that's the thing. He hasn't stepped foot in there. He's just reading the news and looking at whatever fight videos that he sees and is generalizing the entire community. I say, hey, look, we're used to being stereotyped and generalized. So let us hold all of the stereotypes. We're low IQ, thuggish monkeys who love to eat watermelon and fried chicken. So, hey, y'all got some stereotypes too. You know what I mean? That y'all like to have a menage a trois with your dogs. You know what I mean? You guys are very incestuous. I mean, it's a lot of stereotypes. So how about everybody just hold their own filth and stereotypes? So was Nick the product of incest? I'm just saying.
And then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense.
Grape soda is delicious.
And then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person,
how do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's
schools?
white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
Once again, he's asking him about white people and he just has to bring up black people. He asks, how do you feel about white people? Yeah, whites do this, but the blacks, like, bruh, he didn't ask you about black people. Does this sound like fatigue? This sounds like obsession. Every chance he gets, he brings up black people. It's like, dude, if you want to get railed by some Mandingo warrior, you don't got to do all this to get their attention, bruh.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority.
Do you know what percentage?
Of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
what proportion?
I'm curious.
You see, now he's trying to say what proportion. Does this sound like accountability? He's saying in the past decades, the overwhelming mass shooters, and they're really not just mass shooters, they're mass deleters, because there's a difference between a mass shooting and a mass massacre, right? He's talking about massacres, right? And instead of him because he's talking about the black community has an accountability problem. Is this accountability? What's the numbers? What's the proportion? the numbers are, it's overwhelmingly these young white men are just going on these psychotic rampage and deleting people. And he's still trying to say, well, what about the blacks and per capita?
Proportion.
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in
Wait,
these
is my
schools.
mic working?
What
proportion?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know?
So his logic fails right there, right? Because he's saying that, hey, you should avoid blacks because blacks, you know, they're more prone to do gang violence. Well, you know, these whites are more prone to do these mass shootings. So maybe we should stay away from them. Plus, he already said that everyone is racist, right? So just by that, we should be staying away from for a racist reason and for psychotic reasons, because we don't want them to go shooting up the school. But now he's saying, no, you shouldn't stay against white people, even though he will admit that they're the overwhelming ones that goes and shoot up schools and stuff. This shit doesn't even make any sense. This is some backwards, goofy logic.
Per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school.
Bro, you guys are extremely pathetic. Brent J. Draper, get Nick's nuts out your mouth, bruh. And I see a little white substance in that mustache, bruh. Did he jizz on your face? Because I know he haven't had no contact with no women, but it looks like he kind of squirted in your face. Brent J. Draper or Graper or Gaper. Forget the Groipers. Brent J. Gaper. But yeah, that's all they have, the same thing. We was kings and shit. Per capita, y'all gotta get a new playbook, bruh. Why are y'all so obsessed with black people?
Perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you.
Why does it matter? It's the majority. What proportion of black men commit the crime? It's less than 1%. Less than 1% of black men are committing violent crime, but you want to generalize the whole group. So it doesn't matter what the proportion is. We're generalizing white men. You guys are violent, heinous, murderous, barbaric heathens. I mean, right? We all can take generalizations.
60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
Why doesn't he know the stats? He somehow always knows all the stats, even though he's lying and giving a lot of misinformation. He knows the stats about black people, but he doesn't know any stats about white people. And he's supposed to be America first and we need more white babies. So why don't you know all the stats of the white people? You're obsessed with the stats of black people, but you're trying to uplift and enrich your community. Shouldn't you be focused on that?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is
what I'm saying to you is.
And he said he would fear black people, even though 88% of white victims are victimized by other white people. 88% of white people are victimized by other white people. Most crime is intraracial. So it's most likely he will be victimized by another white people. But all he can think about is blacks.
By your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes?
So here he goes with the 0.000%, right? So he knows the percentages. That's the same percentage of black men committing these crimes. It's not 1%, it's 0.00001 something percent. But he won't bring that up. He'll lie and give some false numbers cited from some bigoted site from Twitter.
It's probably like 5%. I guess.
Did y'all hear what he said? It's probably like 5%, right? If somebody says, what's 2 + 2 equals, it's probably like 5. Does that sound like a confident or an accurate answer? Is it 5 or is it probably like 5? So he's saying it's probably, so you're just winging it and guessing it. But let's just go with that number, which he's lying about. He's lying about that number. Let's just say it was 5%. That would mean 95% is not committing those violent crimes. But hey, instead of uplifting and praising the 95% as, keeping they stuff clean out the mud, no, we have to demonize the 5%, which is not even the actual number. It's not even 1%. There's nowhere that he can pull up that says that it's 5%. And actually, we gonna do this in real time. Let me just do this one thing too, because I got some time today. So hold on, let me do this real quick. Just give me one moment. Give me 1 second. I want to pull something else up. Bam. So y'all see that. As of November 2025, there have been 390 murders in Chicago. The number indicates the city is on track to have the lowest number of annual murders in more than a decade. The lowest number of annual murders in more than a decade. And not only that, we know that all of these murders weren't done by black men, but according to my stats, based on 2023 census, they said that it was about 760,000 black people there. If we cut that in half, we know is, let's just say half of them are black men. So, we'll just kind of round it up and say, if you take all of these murders, which we know it wasn't all black people, right? Are there any math whizzes in the house? Take this number of murders, and since we're so violent, hey, credit them all to us. What you would do is take this number of murders divided by the black population, but no, let's cut that in half because they blame black men. So you divide this number of murders by the number of black men in the Chicago population, which is less than 400,000. Let's just say 375. 390 murders divided by 375,000, you're not even going to be 1%. And we know that it ain't only black people. What about all these Latin gangs? Are you telling me that they're not killing anybody? They're just these innocent little victims that are gang banging, but they're not killing anyone. So it's only black people killing one. Let's just say that this is the lowest number in decades. Chicago is a city of over 2 million people. So even if you attribute all of these murders to black men, you won't even get 1%. So should we focus on the not even 1% or the other 99% that's not doing these violent crimes? Which one do you think would be fair and just? All right, let's get right back into that video. Hold on, let me pull it back up.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think?
I'm going to rewind it. First, he said probably, and the number is like this. And then he said, I don't know off the top of the head, but it's probably high. So he's just winging it. If you don't know, just say you don't know. But now he's trying to guess some inflated stats into existence to paint us as these just barbaric heathens.
Playing dumb, or are you just not that
What
smart?
difference does
What's
that
the
make
difference?
to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is in terms
what I'm saying
of
to you is by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangs.
There's no such thing as a black school. Name a black school. Like, what the fuck is a black school? Even when someone talk about HBCUs, there's a bunch of Latinos going there, a bunch of Asians, a bunch of African immigrants. Like, where is the black school? And why is he not mentioning any other race? So he's saying it's just black people were 28% of Chicago's population. There's no school where it's 100% of black people. So what the fuck is he talking about a black school? And then if his kids are not going to schools, why the fuck are you complaining about a school that you're not going to? Right? If he's going to this prestigious Catholic school with all of the whites, shouldn't he be happy? If you're at a school that is succeeding, wouldn't you be proud of the school that you're attending? Instead, you're talking about, man, that school across the way, they're just failing, and it's just so many blacks there. That doesn't sound like fatigue. He's saying that he moved away. He's not living next to the blacks. He's in a gated community. He's with security. He's going to better schools. And yet, and still, he's focused on what blacks in the ghetto are doing. How pathetic could you be?
Gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not.
I have an answer for you.
And think about this. The schools in Chicago that he's calling a black school, there's not a lot of mass shootings at those schools. Meanwhile, the white schools where the kids grow up with silver spoons and two-parent homes, they go in and delete a bunch of other white people. And while they're in there pulling a Columbine on their own people, you got a white dude in there shooting at other white people. And people like Nick is saying, what about Chicago?
Nick, so the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same.
With AI,
you can create any character you want in seconds.
This used to require huge Hollywood.
The black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the
are you hearing it? No.
So
What's
I think the trouble with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny.
So he's mad because he keeps going with the per capita argument, and that's where he just keeps going because he knows that his community commits more crime total overall. So he keeps talking about proportion and per capita to say, yeah, we commit more crime overall, but due to this math trick in percentages, no, you guys actually commit more. But like I said, if the black community commits 500 murders and the white community commits 5,000, he wants you to fixate on the 500 number because proportionality and per capita says that you disproportionately commit more because of your population size. But at the end of the day, you look at the raw numbers. This group is responsible for 500 murders. This group is responsible for 5,000. What is a bigger number? And they want you to convince you that that bigger number is okay because they're a bigger share of the population. Okay.
We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No. Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because
no one's buying this. This
kids.
Argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people,
that is not even a fair comparison. He's saying compare white school shooters to all violent criminals. So he's trying to put white people in a narrow box of school shooters, but trying to account for all black violent crimes. But you know what? Man, we like to do things in real time. So let me see. Hold on. Let me pull something else up because. All right. Give me one moment. And I will get right back to the video. Hold up. Okay, bam, here we go right here. So yeah, don't take my word for it because people like to try to say, hey, you're hating on Nick and all this stuff. So let's see what Copilot has to say about this. And I just simply asked. You don't have to take my word for it. If y'all don't like Copilot, I'll pull up Google Gemini, Claude AI, Chat GPT, whichever one y'all want me to pull up. I'll pull it up. Why is it problematic to use the 1350 crime narrative to demonize Black Americans as inherently criminal? Is this bigoted view acceptable? Let's see what Copilot has to say. The 1350 crime narrative misrepresents data, perpetuates harmful racial stereotypes, and ignores the broader social and structural context affecting Black Americans. It is both misleading and unacceptable as a basis for judgment for policy. But no, it should be acceptable. Why? Because Nick the Fruit Fuentes keeps with it? No, but let's see what else it says. Hold on. Y'all see that? So misleading use of data, the claim that Black Americans, who make up about 13% of the U.S. population, commit 50% of the violent crimes, is an oversimplification that distorts FBI data. It often confuses arrest rates with actual convictions. So why do you think that they focus on arrests? When they say 1350, they're talking about arrests, not actual convictions. Why wouldn't they fixate on convictions? Because, we are over 50+% of the exonerated, meaning that we were wrongfully convicted. Yeah, we may be convicted for a crime, and then 5-10 years later, they say, oops, my bad. So that makes that arrest null and void. Let's say there is a investigation for a murder, right? And they go to a known gang area and they arrest 10 people. Guess what that's going to show up on? That's going to show up part of this 1350. Now, out of those 10 people, they're probably only going to charge and convict one. Do you think they're going to use the number of 1 conviction or 10 arrests? Once they use the number of arrests, it inflates the numbers. It makes crime appear, more pervasive. And then they can say, hey, we said don't throw money at the problem. Hey, but look at all these arrests. Yeah, throw money at the problem. And then nothing ever changes, and they just keep asking for more money to throw at the problem. But when you say, hey, look, how about these schools? No, we're going to defund them. They don't want to defund the police, but they will defund the schools and shut the schools down. They will defund the boys in the rec centers. They will allow parks to be dilapidated and run down. And then they'll say, you know what we can do to fix this? Give the police more robot dogs. That should help the schools, right? So arrest statistics reflect not only criminal activity, but also law enforcement focus, which in many cases leads to disproportionate policing in Black communities, resulting in inflated arrest numbers without necessarily corresponding to higher crime rates, which means they're targeting us, racially profiling us, arresting us more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're committing higher crimes. That's why they're not focusing on convictions. They'll focus on how many Black people they arrested and say, see, it's just their culture. Okay, fine. We have a culture of criminality, but then wouldn't that mean y'all have a culture of corruption and depravity and racism and bigotry? You can't have it both ways. You can't say that we have a culture of inherent criminality, but many of you are corrupt and anti-Black bigots. Why don't you hold that as your culture? Don't try to act like you're this virtuous Christian. No, you are a corrupt minion for the system of white supremacy. Of course, it ignores socioeconomic and historical context. There's harmful social consequences, but let's just see why this view is unacceptable. The idea that Black Americans are inherently prone to criminal behavior is not not supported by careful analysis, but is instead a racist stereotype used to justify discrimination and systemic injustice. It dismisses individual dignity and complexities of socioeconomic realities. Educated discussions emphasize the need to confront and challenge these harmful narratives with facts, context, and empathy. Moving forward, a responsible approach requires recognizing the difference between arrest data and proven criminal behavior. Arresting someone is not a proven conviction, right? Donald Trump was supposed to be arrested, right? Understanding how systemic inequality shapes crime statistics, rejecting oversimplified and dehumanizing stereotypes, supporting policies focused on community investment, education, and economic opportunity rather than solely punitive responses. So are they focusing on investment, education, and economic opportunity, or are they just saying, lock these niggas up? And then when those niggas get locked up, they say, you do the crime, you do the time. They did the time. That's accountability. They get out and you say, I ain't hiring that nigga. He robbed somebody. And he did the time, right? He's supposed to be rehabilitated, but you don't want to hire him. Then he goes back and does some crime because he has to pay bills. And you say, see, they're just like that. But in the sum, the 1350 narrative is fundamentally flawed and harmful. It is not an acceptable way to view or treat Black Americans and runs counter to efforts towards equity and justice. And not only that, there's nothing Christian about demonizing a particular group, especially just for how they look. They say that this is a Christian nation. So what is Christian about painting Black people as just these low IQ, monkey, sub-Saharan niggers? What is Christian about that? But let's get back into the video, though.
Or a young Black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference. And it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment. And we see what it's like, and the threat, the danger.
I mean, this was before I broke it down, but look at this dude named Cum Smuggler. So I know this is definitely one of Nancy Boy Nick's things. He just came back from drinking Nick's man juice, and he said, "Do you understand per capita, my guy?" I just broke that down, but you don't even need to understand it. Like, you guys got to get some new talking points. All they gonna say is the same thing. Per capita, we was kangs. It's like, come on, bruh. You incels, y'all got to stop circle jerking each other, man. Get around some real ones, bro, so y'all can get some new material. And stop smuggling and slurping up all that cum. Get Nick's jizz out your eye.
In terms of probability, it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school
and Sincere coming with a scholarship, school targeted mass shootings equal roughly about 2.5 to 3 times as many mass school shooters are white compared to black. So is this culture? Who raised these dudes?
And truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare, and he reaches for a backpack.
And shout out to Roger Meadows. It looks like you missed a lot, but I'm going in on this whiny, sniveling, disgusting little weasel, Nick Fuentes.
People joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference.
Once again, does this sound like black fatigue or black obsession? Black this, black that, black this, right? But there's a bunch of organized and violent Latino groups. But he won't say, if you see a group of Latinos pulling up, you know what I mean? But if he sees blacks, which they won't do nothing to you. But now, after seeing this video, some people might press you, but he's a dork. He has all sorts of security and he hides behind, a computer screen. But he doesn't want to debate anyone, that will actually challenge him. So he's just going on Piers Morgan to just up his profile. This is not about, him trying to unite, because he did a video where he was doing this fake kumbaya stuff, saying like he'll unite with anyone to, be America first and to like get our country back. How you going to unite with someone calling them niggers, saying you don't want to live next to them? But hey, we should unite in the name of anti-war. Like, get the fuck out of here, bruh.
Is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. In Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day.
So once again, he's saying there's 10,000 carjackings every day. I doubt that's the number, but let's just say it was true. Are you saying 100% of them are black people? And if it's not all black people, why are you only singling out black people? You mean whites don't commit carjackings? Out here in the Bay, there were these bipping crews. Most of them were Hispanic and Asian people. They had a catalytic converter enterprise where people were stealing catalytic converters. When they found out who the head dude was, he wasn't black. It was some sort of Middle Eastern or Persian immigrant that was doing it. It wasn't a black person, but who was the face of it. This is the only group that he says black people are the lowest on the totem pole for crime. We get over policed and disproportionately charged, but in terms of who is manufacturing, selling, distributing guns, it ain't us. When they say who's bringing in the fentanyl, do they say Chinese people or black people? When you think about who's manufacturing and distributing cocaine, is it black people? So they say that drugs are killing our people and we got a war on drugs, but they're not demonizing the people who are the actual plugs of the drugs. Chinese people, they'll say Chinese people are sending fentanyl over here, but that's not Chinese culture. But if a black dude does some fentanyl, that will be black culture. So they can manufacture and then send it over here and poison our people. That's not Asian or Chinese culture. But if a black dude happens to smoke some fentanyl, then suddenly that's black culture and we all have to answer for it and hold him accountable. How the fuck am I going to hold some druggie accountable?
It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits.
Now he's trying to say that the white people committing these shootings are autistic. It's a bunch of autistic black people that do a crime, but when you do the crime, they say, shut up, nigger. We don't care if you're autistic, dyslexic. We don't care if you got cancer. Personal responsibility. And now he's trying to say, oh yeah, maybe these white shooters had autism. Are you fucking kidding me?
A little autistic. He's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack. People joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
And not only that, like I said, this dude is hypocritical, but he's also a liar. And I just looked it up. There were, based on the most recent data, there were approximately 1,650 carjacking. The only most recent information they have is from 2022. He doesn't have the carjacking information from 2025. And in 2022, the most amount of carjackings that year was 1,650 carjackings. He said there's 10,000 a day. And like I said, Piers Morgan, he doesn't really want to push back on this stuff. And he's unequipped to push back on this stuff because he's talking about black people. He's not black, and Piers Morgan doesn't give a fuck about black people. But Nick said he's a truth teller. So why is he lying and saying there's 10,000 carjackings in Chicago a day? The math just ain't mathing. They don't even have the full 2025 data of carjackings. The last data that they have reported is from 2022. And in 2022, there were 1,650 carjackings for that year, not a day.
I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah.
But here's Piers agreeing, yeah, there is way too much black on black crime. But find me anyone. Could y'all clip it and show where Piers is saying there's too much white on white crime? He just said that in terms of proportion, the crime is about the same. The last time I checked, 94% of black people being victimized is by other black people. 88% of white people are victimized by other white people. But Piers or Nick won't take accountability and talk about white on white crime. But both of them, who are supposed to be diametrically opposed, they both will agree. Well, yeah, there is too much black on black crime, but you just can't. So Piers he agrees with the black on black crime. Piers is just the kind that's like, yeah, I agree with the black on black crime, but I don't call them niggers. And Nick Fuentes is, yeah, there's too much nigger on nigger crime. That's the only difference. Piers agrees with him.
It's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process.
He said it was indisputable. Actually, it is disputable. And like I said, he's unprepared. Piers doesn't want to push back. He wants to try to make it seem like, see, there is common ground. We can come together, but they only come together to say what the blacks do wrong.
all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological
No, I'm
position.
not. No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is.
Okay, let's just say Piers is trying to carry water for the liberal ideology. Who is Nick holding water for? What ideology is he holding water for? This is not no Christian Catholic ideology. And if it is, it's a Catholic Christian white supremacist ideology. So just say that. Stop acting like it's anything other than that.
Way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago.
You heard Piers, there's too much black on black crime and too much black on white crime. But Piers will never say there's too much white supremacy. He won't say that. He'll never say, man, you guys are redlining these neighborhoods too much. You guys are mass incarcerating the blacks too much. He won't say that, but he will say blacks are killing whites too much.
Right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people.
Well, this is the thing, Roger. They don't consider those crimes violent, right? If a black dude sells, you know what I mean, a couple bags of weed to somebody that wants to get high, that will be considered black culture. But the dude was just trying to feed his family, get some money. And the person he sold it to was just trying to escape from his stressful life. That will be considered black culture. But when we talk about all of these white collar crimes, the incest, the pedo, the bestiality, the embezzlement, the poison communities like Elon Musk is doing with all of these data centers, the fraud, they don't want to talk about that. Right? What would you consider worse? Someone that's frauding some people, tens of thousands of people out of millions of dollars like Bernie Madoff and Sam Bankman-Friedman, or some dude selling some drugs to a willing druggie? I mean, which one is really worse? But they've convinced you to think that, man, we need to do better, man. We shouldn't be out there selling that crack. This dude sold a piece of crack the size of your fingernail, and he got locked up for 5 years. And now you want to talk about that's black culture. Meanwhile, these people who are fraudulent, they frauded hundreds of thousands of people and didn't even go to jail. And there's no talk of culture. The banks, when they bankrupt the country, it was mainly white men doing that. But there was no talk of white culture. And Obama, Tether-Obama, bailed them out, right? Those people who ran the country into the ground, the Wall Street people who got bailed out for trillions, why they didn't pull themselves up by their bootstrap? They tell you, don't go to the government, quit begging. You just a socialist, quit begging. And then what does Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates do? Every chance they get, they run to the daddy government with their hand out. They say, you niggers don't need shit. Stop going to the government. And then you say, you know what? We don't need to go to the government. And then they turn around and say, you dumb low IQ sub-Saharans, and then they go right to the government. Please look at Elon Musk. Tesla has billions of dollars in subsidies. I'm sure Roger could get it popping if he got $1 billion in subsidy. Ronnie Q, Sincere, I'm sure they can make some things shake if they had $1 billion in handouts. See, subsidies is just another word for handout. See, they don't want you to get reparations, which is a debt owed for unpaid labor, but they want a handout for just being Elon Musk. So they don't want to pay a debt, but they do want to go there and get a handout. Does this shit make any sense to you? Well, it does when you understand the system of white supremacy. And like Dr. Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you.
They already have heard you say, I'm a racist, so they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
What you are seeing on the screen is a $75,000 0% interest business.
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said,
and shout out to Ronnie Q. Trump Jr. just got a government loan of $620 million from the Defense Department for a startup business. And this is what they try to say to us, Ronnie Q. Y'all need to do for self. How was Trump Jr. going to the government begging for money? How is that doing for self? And then when Gaddafi tried to give, and I'm not saying whether I agree with this or don't agree with this, but when Gaddafi tried to give Farrakhan $1 billion to uplift and enrich the Black community, they was like, hell to the no, you can't do that. But when the Saudis gave Jared Kushner $1 billion, they was like, it's okay. When the Saudis is like, hey, Trump, you want a plane? Pay to play, they're like, it's okay. And so when somebody else says, hey, look, let's give some to the Blacks, y'all don't want to give them reparations. Y'all see them as low, scum of the earth. So we'll uplift them. No, y'all cannot help them.
I don't want to live around Black people. That was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I want to live in a white neighborhood.
So here is the more whiny victimhood. He's talking about how bad the neighborhood is. He says he doesn't want to live there. Okay, don't live there. No one is forcing you to live there. And once you don't live there, why the fuck are you complaining about an area that you don't live in and don't want to live in? Like my brother Von Bryan said, he does not visit in these areas. So he's getting on camera, whining about an area that he doesn't go to, doesn't want to go to, and most likely has never been to. So he's just using this to galvanize more of his incel army, just whining. You know what I mean? Imagine there's a restaurant and you think it's disgusting and you never want to go to that restaurant, but you do have a very wholesome, hearty restaurant that you do go to all the time that you enjoy. When you're at that restaurant eating the delicious food, do you think it would be appropriate, logical, sensical to be eating at a restaurant you love, but be talking about the restaurant you hate? Imagine you're at the theaters, the movie theaters, watching a movie that you want to see. You love the movie, but instead of enjoying the movie that you love, you're talking about a movie that you hate. That shit doesn't make any sense. He's in a gated community by mostly white people with security, and all he could think about is Black people. Does that sound like fatigue or obsession or derangement?
I think that that's extremely desirable, and I think even Black people.
Again, Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that.
So they know he created it for the whites, but then they don't talk about this being white culture. It was literally made for you guys. And then they try to find some, hood rat Black chick and say, look, she's the face of all Black women and they're welfare queens. And even at the time when Reagan was pointing Black people as welfare queens, it still was white people getting the most welfare. And even then, guess what they gonna say? Yeah, but per capita, it's the same shit. With crime per capita, food stamps per capita. They never want to use the raw numbers, but they never say per capita, we get exonerated the most. They never talk about that. They never say per capita, we get disproportionately stopped the most. They don't want to do that type of per capita, right? They never talk about the per capita with Black women in the maternal death rate, right? They'll say that they're pro-life, so they should be the main ones against Black women dying when giving birth. But they don't give a fuck, right? With Black women, they don't care if you die giving birth. They push abortion. But when the immigrants come over, they push fertility. Here, let me help you deliver your baby. Why were there no abortion clinics at the border, right? So they'll tell a Black woman that like, hey, man, look, you're poor, so the best way to provide for your baby is to abort it. But then you got refugees coming over here. Clearly they're poor, right? They're claiming they're fleeing gang violence and seeking asylum. They're poor as shit, but they say, hey, you know what? You guys should have a baby. So poor immigrants should have babies, but poor blacks should abort their kids. That's what people like Nick and Piers push.
All your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people.
Who is his own people? The gays, the whites, the Mexicans, the Italians, the groypers, the gapers, the incels. Who is he talking about?
Seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about.
See, and this is where the intellectual cowardice comes in. Nobody is saying, hey, you need don't be with your own people. Nobody is saying don't go have the white babies. We need more white babies, right? That's what they always push, and no one is saying that. We're saying, hey, go live in your little white enclave, but don't undermine us. Why do you got to call us niggers, right? You can't get a white, apparently he likes booty, right? You can't get no pale cheeks without calling us a nigger. Are you that disgusting and desperate that your white survival is predicated on anti-black racism? I mean, how pathetic could you get?
That I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
product of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's
really.
say for the sake of argument, sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
for the sake of argument,
the
we could
very
say,
person
sure.
you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's
once again, see, here we go again. And this is why we are delineating. This is why we are disaggregating data. Piers Morgan, these are supposed to be two high IQs. When the fuck did Hispanic become a race? We got to pull this up in real time, man, because I don't even know what the hell these people are talking about. And these are supposed to be the high IQs. This is not a strong showing. We like to pull things up in real time. So let's go through this stuff. This is like elementary shit. Why do I have to bring this up to the high IQs? Let's commence. Hispanic refers to an ethnicity, a cultural and linguistic heritage, not NOT, not a race. And recognizing this distinction helps respect the complex racial identities within Hispanic communities, including Black identity, which remains vital and distinct. Hispanic as an ethnicity, not a race. The term Hispanic describes people with origins in Spanish-speaking countries, primarily from Latin America and Spain. It is categorized as an ethnicity rather than a race because it represents shared cultural, linguistic, and historical backgrounds rather than a single racial group. This means people who identify as Hispanic can be any race, white, Black, indigenous, Asian, or multiracial, reflecting the rich diversity within these populations. So Piers Morgan, he's supposed to be a high IQ. He knows Hispanic is not a race, but this is the kind of nebulous way that they like to play, where it is a race, but no, it's not. There's a bunch of dark-skinned, Black, melanated Hispanics in Brazil. Are they the same race as the white Hispanics? No. If there's Asian Hispanics, white Hispanics, and Black Hispanics, how the hell are we all the same race? This shit just doesn't even make any sense. And that's the way they like it. Up until now, most Hispanics in America have always identified as racially white. But coming in 2030, they're going to try to make this Hispanic into like a pseudo racial ethnic category. But where does that leave people, right? If you're Black and Hispanic, do you check Hispanic or do you check Black? And it's unfortunately making people draw the line in the sand. They say it's the social construct, but people adhere to that construct. So guess it just is what it is. But the fact that they're over here acting confused about is Hispanic a race? And Nick Sanity's Mexican. Mexican is not a race. Italian is not a race. And Irish is not a race. So when people say they're Hispanic, you have to follow up. What race are they? Fat Joe is Hispanic. But what race is Fat Joe? He's definitely not Black and he's definitely not Asian. So what race is Fat Joe? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What race is she? She's definitely not Asian. She's definitely not Black. So what race is AOC? Let's get back into the video.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
It's not white,
and
though, is
Europeans.
it? It's not white.
Well, you're apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a
really.
one-drop
You just
rule
keep
thing
saying you
going.
only want to
Kind
live in a
of.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally
and I
got
live in
Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here though, but I'm trying to get out. But
Here we go again. He said he lives in a non-white neighborhood. You have, like, what are you complaining about, right? He has money. He has security. So why the fuck are you living in a non-white neighborhood? No one is forcing you to live there. And he's lived there and clearly, I mean, nothing has happened to you. So what are you railing against? What is stopping you from moving? See, when Black people talk about, man, it's too much gang violence and it's too much police brutality and damn, man, they gentrifying the area. They say, why don't you just move, man? Quit complaining. Personal responsibility. If he lives in a non-white neighborhood, clearly he's getting a lot of money from these incel dweebs. Why don't you just move? If you got enough money to afford security, you could move. So stop acting like a little bitch. Stop acting like a victim. Pack your bags and move in with your boyfriend.
But here's the thing.
Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are Black?
The honesty.
How many of your friends are Black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah.
Here we go again. And this is the reason why we are delineating. Do y'all know who Sneeko is? First of all, Ye is Kanye West. People try to say he's a genius. He's bipolar in this. All the nigga is a talented step and fetch it Sambo. Kanye West. But Sneeko, do y'all know who Sneeko is? I call Sneeko Sneak Ho because he's a sneaky hoe, a sneaky tether, trying to tether onto a lineage, tether onto a race that he's not even a part of. Let's see, because he says Sneeko is Black. Huh? Since fucking when? Let's just pull this up right here because what the hell is this dude talking about? We got to get to the bottom of this, man. Hold on real quick. What race is Sneeko, right? And see, this is why we're delineating because people will try to say, hey, they're Black when they want to call us niggers and talk about the Black community. They get around other people. I'm mixed. They get around another group. I'm Asian. When you pull up, hey, what race is Sneeko? Sneeko, whose real name is Nicholas Kendi Balantazzi. Nicholas Kendi Balantazzi. I'm just saying, does that sound like a Black name to you? He is of mixed ethnicity. He has a Filipino mother, not Black, of partial Han Chinese descent, not Black, a multiracial Haitian father, not black. Multiracial means not black. You could have a mixture of black, but multiracial means not black. Haitian is not a race. He says that his dad is of Afro-Haitian and Ashkenazi Jewish. What the fuck is an Afro-Haitian? So let's look at this dude, right? Because when you see this dude, nobody in their right mind would think that this dude is black. Do y'all see these pictures? Hold on. Let me try to pull this up. Anyways, y'all can see this dude. He doesn't look anything like a black person, but apparently, according to Nick Fuentes, Sneeko is black. Even Sneeko will run around and say that he's black, but when they ask him, like, who is black in your family? He'll say, my dad is Haitian. There's white Haitians. There's Indian Haitians. Saying that you're Haitian is not a race. There's nothing about this dude that looks black. And this is why we're delineating, because Sneeko is part of this biracial brain dead bozo class that goes around talking shit about black people and say, hey, I'm black too. That's why I'm calling them niggers. And that's why I'm talking about black on black crime, because I'm black too. But he doesn't, his family, he has partial Chinese roots. He won't talk about the brutality in China. He won't talk about Filipino culture. But he will talk about black people. His dad is part Jewish. He won't talk about pedophilia in the Jewish community, but he will talk about black people. This dude is not black at all. But hold on. Let's get back into that video. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me try to find a picture because I just want y'all to see how much this dude. It's just like this dude don't even look nothing like anybody. I don't know how people let this dude get that off. Where is black? Black where? What? Where? Where the fuck is he black at? Huh? Sneeko was black? Since when? We got to stop this shit, bruh. Let me get back into it, though.
And so how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that. And people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're.
Here we go again with the hypocrisy. So he said, most of us are not violent and criminals, but he said that his dad said, don't go to Olive Garden because niggers eat there. Don't go to Applebee because niggers eat there. But if you said most niggers are not bad, why would it matter? So this dude is just lying and he's just being super hypocritical. But like I said, because he's railing against the blacks, people will make it seem like he's sort of some sort of genius or savant. He's debunking himself. Piers Morgan is not giving him any pushback. He's asking these fake tough questions that are not even tough. He's asking these questions to get him to lay out and lean into his anti-blackness. And Piers Morgan is unequipped to challenge him. You already heard him agreeing with the whole black on black crime thing, but he won't have him take accountability for white on white crime. This is cowardly on both of their parts. Propagandist Piers and Nancy boy Nick.
Going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man.
Here's more hypocrisy. So he says, stay away from the blacks because, hey, look, most of you are good, but you know what? We just don't know which one of you guys are the bad. But can't we say that too? Hey, look, man, white people, we love you, but man, most of y'all agree with these racist, bigots, Derek Chauvin. Most of y'all are NIMBYs and want to redline us. Most of y'all have ancestors that enslaved my people and lynched and would go to the lynch. Y'all would Bible thump and then go watch a lynching with your kids and stuff like that. I don't know which one of y'all are good, so I have to generalize y'all and treat y'all all as bigots. If I say that, then that will be considered anti-white racism. But when he says that against black, it's just, hey, just went around blacks, never relax. You see what I'm saying? Well, I'll say, hey, went around whites, you might have to take flight.
With her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally far fewer.
But how many? How many? Do you know?
Here he goes with the proportional stuff again. He didn't ask you about proportional. He didn't ask you about per capita. How is this accountability? He's asking him how many white people have committed these heinous crimes. And instead of taking accountability, he's just going to keep deflecting and obfuscating to it's the blacks and per capita. And this is why I always tell Black people, we are the only ones that hold each other accountable. There's been multiple accusations of pedo activity in the Jewish community. Could you find me one video of one Jewish person talking about it? Having a space like I'm doing right now? There's a litany of Black people talking about Black people need to do better and we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and fatherless homes and Black on Black crime. We got a litany of Black people doing that. We got a litany of white people doing that. Do we have a multitude of white people talking about white on white crime and culture and fatherless homes and kids out of wedlock? I mean, Nick Fuentes said he grew up with a single mom and, you know what I mean, in a dysfunctional household. Where's the accountability for that?
How many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
I mean, you're very big on, you're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act.
Yeah, for me, fuck Kanye West. This dude is just, you know, like I said, he's a Sambo. He shouldn't really be taken seriously. You know, he'll make a good song and a good beat, and then people will try to be like, oh, you know, he's a genius. And notice that he always like is attacking us. He'll act like he's going after the Jews, but then y'all seen him. He was bending the knee, groveling. He basically had Jewish nuts in his mouth. He'll say slavery is a choice, but he won't say the Holocaust was a choice. We went through a brutal Holocaust even longer than what the Jews went through. And he'll say slavery was a choice because of how long it was. But he won't say that the Holocaust was a choice. But then people think that he's speaking up. He's standing up to the Jews. What, the same Jews that bent him over and he got buck broke? His trainer was a Jew. His trainer threatened to have him committed. You know what I mean? And still, he'll shit on us, but not the Jews. He'll go apologize to them, but not us. So I don't really give a fuck about Kanye West.
Had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes.
And see, this is where it gets a bit pathetic and hypocritical. He said that he has black friends. He said he has many. He said most of his friends are non-black. Then he said he knows that most of black people are not doing these crimes, but still he doesn't want to eat next to the niggers. He doesn't want to live next to the niggers. He doesn't want anything to do with us because he wants white babies, even though he's allegedly gay. But yeah. And then on top of that, why doesn't he have any derogatory terms for any other group? He'll rail against immigrants, but he won't call them a slur. He won't call them any epithet or any insults. He's just saying, yeah, I'm against the immigrants unless they're white. But with blacks, every chance he gets, he'll call us nigga.
Scribe is how you stop explaining the same thing over and over at work. Watch this. It'll change your life.
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience.
And thank y'all for watching. Just so y'all know, I'm just only going to cover the part where he talks about black people. Maybe I'll do a part 2 where he goes and start railing, it's the Jews, you know what I mean? So I'm just only going to talk about him and addressing his anti-black vitriol and Piers Morgan's propaganda. So I think they should probably be transitioning soon, but I'll just play the rest of what he has to say, of his black obsession.
Okay. Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on. And I would add to that, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the
perpetrated
neck.
by white people?
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
He keeps trying to conflate these stories. He's talking about some Ukrainian chick who got stabbed on the train, allegedly. It looked like a psyop, it did look fake, but let's just say it was real. That person was a schizophrenic, so it literally was a mental health issue, but instead they tried to turn it into a black culture issue. But in the Bay Area, there was this deranged white man who stabbed this beautiful young black girl, and then they were just like, oh yep, it was a mental health issue. He didn't know what he was doing. He lost his mind. And then this dude who was documented on paper to have schizophrenia, they were like, nope, we don't give a fuck about that. He's a nigger, so that's black culture and stuff. Then he's trying to bring up this whole Austin Metcalf, Carmelo Anthony story. So in Texas, you have the right to stand your ground if you fear for your life and or bodily harm. So Carmelo Anthony was approached by 2 large, muscular, athletic, thuggish appearing people. They were allegedly calling them slurs and apparently put their hands on them. And then Carmelo Anthony, in self-defense, he stabbed the dude, and the dude ended up, getting deceased. So they're trying to turn that into a black culture issue. Well, why did he have a knife and all this stuff? He should have just moved. Well, apparently he was under a canopy and it was raining that day, and they were trying to say, hey, this is not your school. You need to get the hell out of here, nigger, etc. It escalated. I wish it was, it didn't turn out that way. It was unfortunate, but he didn't stab him because he was white or anything like that. It was just a case, of self-defense. And it's crazy because there was an actual story of a white dude who stabbed and killed a Mexican dude in Texas. He said he told other people that he was going to stab him. He went to school. They met up for a fight. And, I guess he was getting beat up or he was getting jumped, and he didn't stab the dude. He said that he stabbed him once, but he stabbed this dude several times. And guess what? This dude didn't even get a year in jail. So, but they want to give Carmelo Anthony the death penalty for his self-defense. And mind you, he was physically assaulted. Daniel Penny choked out a mentally deranged, drugged out black dude because they said he was threatening people, but he didn't touch anybody. So they choked him out and they were like, that's okay. They raised $3.5 million for him. Meanwhile, Carmelo Anthony was assaulted. He was assaulted and, he met that assault with deadly force. Now, you don't have to like it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it is what it is. In these stand your ground states, you can defend yourself with deadly force if you fear for your life. And here's the caveat, and or bodily harm. Carmelo Anthony was, I think, like 5'6", 5'7", versus two twin brothers who were over 6 feet, jacked linebackers. Sounds like a very fearful situation.
You're implying that white people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of course,
Oh, I never said white people don't do it.
Of course, deranged white people commit heinous acts, but you don't.
So here he goes again with his intellectual cowardice. I never said white people don't do it. Yeah, you never said that they do it also. Can anyone tell me at what point in this video you guys have heard him take accountability for white people? You've heard him blaming black people. You've heard him playing victimhood. You've heard him say black people do this, black people do that, but he's white. What did he say white people do? Right? We're the low IQs. He's the high IQ. Shouldn't he be holding his community to a higher standard because they're the alleged high IQs? Instead, he keeps blaming the blacks, the people who he said are dumb. You guys didn't even build the wheel. You guys have no power, but he keeps blaming the alleged dumb powerless. That shit doesn't make any sense.
Either
No
know,
disagreement.
you neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
They don't talk. His dad is part Mexican, which means he has Latino roots, but he never talks about Latino crime. He talks about his dad being part Irish. They have an Irish mafia. He doesn't talk about that crime. He says that he's part Italian. There's an Italian mafia. He doesn't talk about that crime. He has multiple, because he says his people are ethnic, right? Well, all of those ethnic groups have organized crime. And he won't talk about any of that, but he will talk about blacks over and over and over. And then he says he has black fatigue, but he just keeps talking about black people.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. The problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism. They're victims of slavery. They've been told really there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate.
Here he goes again, railing against black people again. Piers Morgan asked him about white people, and who's he talking about again? What accountability? So why would any black person take this dude seriously? He's telling blacks that they need to have accountability, but he's not taking any accountability for the whites. Joe Biden, he said his main problem was that Joe Biden, he doesn't recognize his country, right? Joe Biden let in tens of millions of illegal immigrants. That's a white dude. Yet he's not talking about the pattern of white people running this country into the ground. He's not talking about the pattern of white people starting wars overseas, going over there, rape, pillaging, and plunder. He's not talking about that. Russians are white. Ukrainians are white. He's not talking about them slaughtering each other and then coming over here. But he is talking about, well, the blacks have become narcissistic. If blacks are narcissistic, what does that make Nick? What does that make Nick Fuentes? He's not narcissistic, but black people are. And then he's saying you guys are acting like you're victims of slavery and all this stuff. Isn't he acting like a victim? He's complaining about black schools that he doesn't go to. He's complaining about black crime in black neighborhoods that he doesn't even live into. Who's sounding like the victim? All he's doing is complaining. He's whining. What solutions has he given? The only solution was to stay away from the blacks. Okay, you're away from the blacks. You've already completed a successful solution. And still, it's the blacks every fucking day. Like, who listens to this whiny, sniveling, slimy, pompous prick?
If they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white.
Who told black people that you have no accountability for the actions? We're held accountable more than anyone. Black people call each other out more than anyone, and we're disproportionately punished with punitive damages based on the legal system. That would be accountability. You want to talk about who's not accountable? Who are all the white dudes that was on this Jeffrey Epstein list? Has anyone been locked up? They have the list, but they didn't lock anyone up. Where the fuck is the accountability in the white community? You guys are over there fondling little boys, booty holes in the Catholic community. Where's the accountability in there? They don't show no accountability. They just ship him off to another area so he can play with another boy's booty hole and then cover it up. Get the fuck out of here, bro, with this accountability shit.
Man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we have been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see.
He's always being rude and insulting to people, and he's saying that he doesn't want to see black people be rude. So he's calling people niggers and low IQs and you guys haven't did this. He's being super insulting. There's nothing Christian about there. There's nothing cordial about that. But he's railing against blacks being rude. Why the fuck would you be nice to this dude?
All over social media on
so
the
just to
body
be clear,
cam footage,
you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are narcissists?
Just answer the question straight up, right? And not only that, what about Tucker Carlson? Tucker Carlson said when it came to black people, he said white supremacy is a hoax. Systemic racism doesn't exist. Then a couple years ago, not a couple decades ago, a couple years ago, I think it was last year, he says systemic racism does exist, but only against white people. So he's playing the victim card, but only against white people. So this is what they always do. They tell you, stop begging the government, go pull yourself up by your bootstrap. They turn around and they go beg or lobby the government. They tell you, stop complaining about the past. Stop seeing yourself as a victim. And you say, you know what? We need to stop seeing ourselves as a victim. They turn around and say, well, whites are victims. We're under attack. DEI, affirmative action, all that shit benefits the white community. DEI benefits mainly white women. Most white women marry white men. So that disproportionately benefits the white community. Black people have received less than 5% of the DEI benefits. Same thing with affirmative action. We're at the bottom of the poll. You know, once they say minority and marginalized groups, that means literally anybody but us. There can be a straight white man who says, you know what, I want to be trans. They turn trans and guess what? They're part of a minority and a marginalized group. So they're entitled to the same minority benefits as you. You know, your family could come from lynchings, debt peonage, sharecropping, but if a white dude breaks his leg and now he's disabled, he's now a minority entitled to the same benefits as you.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on
you're
me.
Ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of.
See, now he's getting into this Weasley troll stuff. I'm kind of black. No, nothing about you is black. You're kind of whack. Matter of fact, you're extra whack. So don't try to like troll out now. You know what I mean? Nothing about you is black. Stick to your heritage, dude. You're a wannabe Anglo. You're not that. You're just, you know, a mutt, a buck broken mutt that's trying to be accepted by the Anglos, but you'll never be a wasp.
Black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
And that is true. Ye, who's Kanye, who does try to act like a victim. Oh, the Jews canceled me and all this shit, man. Fuck you, Kanye. You are a coon hanging around dudes like him, Milo and Sneeko and shit like that. And then you want to act like a victim and then say slavery was a choice. Well, yeah, you going against the Jews was a choice. So if they want to cancel you and they want to buck break you and make you bend the knee, hey, it was a choice. You know what I mean? You make your bed, you got to lie in it.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life.
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
That seems very rude to me the last 2 times.
So Ye being polite, that has nothing to do with him being a victim. And see, this is where he tries to play these games because Ye is nice to him, then what? He's not a bigot. He's not a raccoon. He's not a Sambo. He's not buck broken because he was nice to you.
I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also.
Well, you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
Because
you're being very rude by interrupting me right now.
To you,
I'm giving you a hard time, but I
okay.
do want to finish my.
That shit wasn't even funny. Are you black? You're being rude. So, but that does make a point, right? Apparently, he thinks Piers is being rude. So why are you trying to act like rudeness is something inherent to black people? Nick Fuentes is always being rude, always talking about people, always yelling at Tucker Carlson, yelling at Candace Owens, being extremely nasty and rude. But he wants to blame black people. Have y'all heard him take accountability for his rudeness? This is what you call intellectual cowardice and dishonesty. You're telling other people to do something that you won't even do, telling other people to take accountability that you haven't even taken.
Point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite. And by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know.
So this is the thing. Most of those drill rappers, their audience is mainly non-black people. It's a lot of white people. So if the culture is so degenerate, so violent, and black and white people have fatigue, why would you listen to this degenerate, depraved devil music? And then once you start listening to it, why are you complaining? There's no gun to these white kids' head forcing them to go to these concerts and listen to this music. Why are you complaining about what you consume? It's just like these incel dweebs who talk about the chicks on OnlyFans. It's like, dude, nobody is forcing you to trick off your money and pay for these whole subscription. You're paying for the subscription because you want to see some cooch and you want to see some ass popping. Then you see some ass popping and then you just, oh my God, this is depraved. Yeah, what does that make you? Right? This drill music is unhinged. What does that make you? Because every time you riding around, you listening to this. You ain't listening to Keith Urban. You ain't listening to Taylor Swift. You listening to Chief Keef and, you know what I mean? G Herbo or some shit like that.
About him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree.
That sounds straight up like victimhood. So Kanye says he doesn't feel black, so he goes and vents to a non-black person that doesn't even like black people. So yeah, Kanye, we don't care. Nigga, go and suck on some more Jewish pain. You feel me? Nick Fuentes is allegedly, you know what I mean, a fruit pop. So let him reel you from behind and just disown the black community. We don't care. Dave Chappelle, that racial draft, let's get that popping for real. And Kanye, you can go over there with Nick Fuentes. And you know what I mean? Y'all can be little butt buddies and go do your thing. You know, he wants to, y'all can slap that Hell Hitler song while Nick puts a strap on and hits Ye from the back. Cause that's all it sounds like. There's no other reason for Ye to be doing all this goofy shit. You know what I mean? Pandering to these various communities, bending the knee. But then, you know, he's always shitting on the black community. So yeah, Kanye, you are a raccoon of the lowest order. So yeah, go back with Nick Fuentes and, you know, help him circle jerk.
He's actually not like that at all.
Okay.
We're talking
he's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here. And we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people and indeed what Ye said about.
Okay, so we'll stop it there because now they're about to go into the whole anti-Semitism thing. And, you know, you'll hear Piers Morgan, propagandist Piers, be more vociferous and rigorous with his defense. You know, when it's black people, you know, he agrees with the black on black crime and all these other narratives. He's just the type to tone it down. See, these people agree with Nick. They just don't agree with Nick in the whole nigger rhetoric. Like they see us as niggers. It's just they don't want to say it. You know what I mean? So, you know, I would respect Nick more than someone like Piers Morgan. It's just Nick is trying to do this whole fake kumbaya thing. He's trying to soften some of his rhetoric because he does want to be like a mainstream Tucker, Rush Limbaugh. But people keep forcing him to stand on what he said, and now he keeps trying to backtrack. But this has been a fruitful stream. We already 3.5 hours in. I have to give a gigantic shout out to everyone who has been viewing this concurrently and who will be watching this on the replay, gang. You know what I mean? Let me know after the stream what you agree with, what you disagree with. Leave a thumbs up, a black fist, 100, anything in the chat. You know, I definitely appreciate the engagement. And I have to give a special shout out to Ronnie Q. Ronnie Q is all love. Whenever you're trying to do that panel, I don't know if I think you on IG. I mean, you can send me an email or DM. Definitely would love to do a panel with you, either here or over on your panel. And thank you for the contribution. If you like what you heard here, you know what I mean? Or even if you hate watching, you know, feel free, you know, to hit your boy up with a contribution. You know what I mean? Forget that Starbucks, man. You don't really need that anyways. That fast food is disgusting for you. But somebody that's actually going to stand on business, you know what I mean? That's quite rare. So yeah, the Cash App is right down there. So if you want to hit your boy with something, anything from $1 to $1 million, should surely suffice. But before we get up out of here, I'm gonna hit y'all with a couple visuals. Hopefully y'all hang around for a little bit. But we about to shut this down within the next 10 minutes. But before we do that, time for a like intermission. We kindly request that you show love to the channel's creator and platform by leaving a like, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest content. Liking posts is completely free and helps the algorithm boost our reach. We want to grow the community larger and larger. So thank you all who take the time to support us. It does mean the world to us and doesn't go unnoticed. And for those who want to make a contribution, hey.
Don't you think it's about time you gave me my money? My money. I need cash. Please send that money. Please send that money. Please send that money. My money. I need cash. My money. I need cash. My money.
And before we shut this thing down, you know, I'm gonna hit you. Yeah. Hey. B-Eazy Dat Dude, yeah. Shit so hot it's burning up. Just go ahead and turn this up. I bring the pain like an aftermath of a car wreck. It's a lot of niggas that say they real, but to me that shit is far-fetched. Most them cats is pussy. They really is on some feminine stuff. I ride up on them with the 40 ounces. The definition of adrenaline rush. What it do is sweet like cinnamon puffer. My niggas is rough like Willow Pass. Grew up out on Mary Mac, but I used to hang on Willow Pass. These birds that I roll with, outcasts and misfits. Better zip lips so you get hit when the fifth spit. Flat line in your Fitbit. Trap habits is black magic, no voodoo. Get the bands like Buku for the cocaine to go cuckoo. Most these niggas is foo-foo, so I'm shitting on them like doo-doo. I can't fuck with y'all like tofu. I'm just saying, man, like Goku. Bad bitches at the house with me watching Netflix or Roku. Fuck them both at the same time, and I swear to God it was so cool. Street legend, real boss, I call shots cause I'm still saucy. I know some G's to the bike crack on Chirac and then fly back out to Mill. When they hear me flow, they say I be burning up, burning up. Cookie to the draw is what we burning up, burning up. What you ain't know, oh, we burning up, burning up. This shit so hot, it's burning up. Just go ahead and turn this up. When you hear me flow, say I be burning up, burning up. Cookie to the draw is what we burning up, burning up. What you ain't know, oh, we burning up, burning up. This shit so hot, it's burning up. Just go ahead and turn this up.
You love me. You really love me. You're not going anywhere.